This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
Was anyone really surprised? Was anyone at all? Was anyone at all really surprised? You ask a mobster's moll a question she doesn't want to answer. You ask a mobster's moll a question she doesn't want to answer. And Oldham Council leak details of members of the public. They leak the names and addresses of members of the public to a malicious blogger, Neil Wilby. And the mobster, Irish IMY, also takes to social media. This is beyond a lawless town. What we have in Oldham is a town run by an alternative set of laws. And at the center of this, on one side flanked by the leader of the council, AROOJ SHAH, on the other side flanked by Abdul Jabbar, the shadowy figures of Pakistani mobsters, and the malicious blogger behind, stands one of the most powerful men in this country.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very good evening. It is Sunday the 7th of November 2021. My name is AROOJ SHAH. This is a Recusant 9 subscriber only transmission. So welcome to all of you who've got links who are not subscribers. Please do subscribe to the YouTube. Click on the subscribe link on the YouTube channel if you don't mind, and comments and reactions. If you can like the post, it just helps when we put the edited highlights out. Very good evening to all of you. It's been a significant week in all things Oldham Council. The council sits at the centre of a massive data breach. What has taken place under AROOJ Shah's stewardship should not surprise anyone who is familiar with the tactics of this Labour-run administration. She is simply carrying on where Sean Fielding left off and abusing her position to attack and intimidate her critics. That she hasn't distanced herself from what has took place, well, I think we all know how, and by the time I finish with you today, you'll see a recurring pattern that I will share with you with other stories that have took place where all, suspect number one. You don't need Miss Marple. You don't need Miss Marple here. You don't need Columbo. You don't need Poirot. You don't even need Scooby-Doo. It is blatantly obvious what is going on here. Okay, let's give it a start. If you want to, you're more than welcome to buy me a coffee. The link's there. If you don't, that's fine as well. I will edit these highlights and get them out probably on Monday night, Tuesday night. Excuse me, I'm coughing. I don't know what you guys are on about on the side, but no, you've got it wrong. Politically mobilised, politically educated, night and day between one and the other. And we need to get the town to a place where you're politically educated so you can speak with authority. But we're on that journey. We're on that journey already. This is the full council meeting YouTube channel. You can see it there. You've had 210 views of it, of the full council meeting. The reason I went on it wasn't for that. The reason I went on it was, as we released this past week, the council has taken off and hidden 2 full council meetings. The one to do with Sean Fielding and his barefaced lies, and the one to do with AROOJ Shah, where she declares her loyalty, her fealty to the mobster, Irish IMY. So we'll, if you have a look at that channel, you'll see that. What I did giggle at, because I've been attacked, as I always am, of my, whatever it is now, my absence of viewing, figures. This is the full council meeting. 210 people watched it. Let me show you something. 210 people watched it on the council's official channel. With the commentary, you can see that. 841 views I've had. So it shows that people are genuinely educated. A 3-hour transmission, 841 views on my channel. And you can see the analytics, that's 501 since, and the watch time, and you know, this is the interesting stuff. 275 returning viewers, 435 unique viewers in total. These figures are just you know, as we go along, it's just you can see the gender demographics split, increasingly getting a younger audience. We're now getting 20% of our views from 35 to 44 year olds, and we'll break the 25 to 34 year old barrier sooner rather than later. But you can see people want to be educated. People want to be educated. Those of you who ventured in real life to the council meeting would have been met by the police, there to intimidate you. And if they weren't enough, there was also private security guards there unlawfully attempting to search people who turned up to a council meeting to sit in the public gallery. Do not for one moment think this has anything to do with the safety of councillors. At no point in the history of Oldham Council has any councillor faced anything resembling a threat in a council meeting. I think it's usually Warren Bates and a couple of others who rock up to the full council meetings. The police were there. Private security guards paid for by you were there. And some people feeling apprehensive, rightfully so, turned away and left. This isn't democracy. This is something else. This is not how our country is meant to run. But the police were there and private security guards were there. And whilst the police and private security guards were there, do you know the councillors were? Do any of you know what happens before a council meeting? Bear in mind, these councillors receive a healthy allowance. Every one of them receive a healthy allowance from yourselves, and they also sit on committees where they receive a healthy allowance, and so should they also represent the council on external bodies, they get another healthy allowance for that. So it's a full-time job. The likes of the leader of the council, I think they earn £50,000-60,000 just basic. Do you know where the councillors were whilst they complain about children starving, whilst they complain about the government and food banks? The councillors, prior to a full council meeting, the councillors sit down for a feast, a banquet, a lavish meal paid for by you. Were you aware of this? They sit down for a lavish meal paid for by you. Pigs at the trough, they stuff their faces, which is probably why, when they're sat down in the council meetings, some of them appear fast asleep, on the verge of being fast asleep, because they don't really say a single word, do they? And this week's council meeting. Oh, it's worse, Julie. It's actually worse. You know what else you're paying for? Do you know what else you're paying for? The councillors don't park in the Queen Elizabeth Hall and walk across like you and I or anyone else would do. The councillors have a special entrance into the underground car park, where you also pay for a special security guard to sit there, meet them, and take them up in the lift. Yeah, I'm not joking. They have a special car park, that they manned car park, woman car park, whatever the phrase is, that you pay for as well. So they come along, park their cars in this underground car park, are met, taken in a lift to the lavish meal before they go and sit themselves down. And a private security guard, the private security firm, was also paid by you guys, Oldham COP. It was also paid for by you guys. So all of this is on your council tax. And when the meeting started, it took a predictable turn. Oh, thousands, tens of thousands, Lynn. Without a shadow of a doubt. Private security firm. Meet and greet. What are they called? You have them in America, don't you? Where they come and take your car off you and park it for you, whatever they're called. It's something akin to that. It's not a concierge, is it? But you know what I mean. A lavish meal prepared for them. All paid for by you. All paid for by you. And that's really the point, isn't it, Jack? This is the, a town with the highest council tax in the country. And here we are, Valet. Thank you, Father Samosa. Father Samosa, that's a nice name. You know what I meant to do today? I meant to come in with a samosa, a nibble on my samosa. Do as we say, not as we do, Sheila. Do as we say, not as we do. So, when the meeting started, they invited the new senior police officer. And I'm not going to play any of that. It was a car crash. In his Welsh accent. I could talk for longer than 10 minutes, but I'm not. I could talk for longer than 10 minutes. Actually, he couldn't talk for longer than 10 minutes, which is why he kept making reference to the fact that he could talk for longer than 10 minutes. He was absolutely appalling. And the following day, I heard via a police officer, serving Oldham police officer, it's nice to know that the most senior police officer in the town has made the time to go to a council meeting when he hasn't made the town to speak to the frontline officers. No, I'm not joking there either. So, here's a political appointment, and the purpose of this political appointment is very clear. The councillors, the leader of the council, the leader of the opposition, Soft Sheldon, and Howard Sykes asked their questions. Well, actually, Soft Sheldon didn't ask any questions. He just welcomed the leader of the Conservatives, just welcomed him. The town on its knees, vigilante street patrols doing what they want, mobsters patrolling the streets, people being beaten up and battered, the police not turning up, and the Conservative leader just welcomed him. Howard Sykes came the closest to asking anything challenging. AROOJ SHAH, well, you can imagine AROOJ SHAH. The deal's been done already, hasn't it? We'll ignore all of Greater Manchester Police's failings, and in return, you ignore our corrupt council. It doesn't take a genius to work out what sort of arrangements are being discussed between AROOJ SHAH's council and a police force that the Prime Minister has confirmed to be corrupt. And Brian Hoban. And I like the guy. I like the guy. I've had him on here. But what I find interesting with Brian Hoban is, forget selling me out. Any of these politicians who I've worked with can sell me out. It's irrelevant to me. But he's now selling out the people of Failsworth. And his question was just as atrocious as the Conservatives. He just wants to be liked, does Brian. He wants to be accepted. But as the meeting went on, as the people of Failsworth found out at the end, AROOJ Shah outmaneuvered Brian, outflanked him, outfought him, and Failsworth was shafted, comprehensively shafted, which is what happened at the end of the meeting. And before people woke up and understood what had happened, the cartels had their way. AROOJ Shah and Amanda Chadderton had her way. And they left. No doubt for that after party at the mocktail bar, not too many miles away. Rambles and fireworks, yeah, rambles and fireworks. Thank the ramblers. You know the issue with the Saddleworth lot? I'll get to that. Let me bring you this up. This is what happened at the end of the meeting. You all missed it. Sorry, this is someone I can't speak to right now, so they'll have to wait. You all missed it. But what they created, what Amanda Chadderton and AROOJ Shah created, was 5 new districts. So districts are how local democracy operates. So you have the council, and then underneath you have 5 districts that are created through which the communities engage. Budgets will be delegated, powers will be delegated. And when you want to carve up a town that you're on the verge of losing power in certain areas, what you do is this. Brian Hoban made reference to it a couple of meetings ago, where he talked about the districts and when the districts will be reconvened. And I have no doubt he was hoping for a better outcome than the one he got. So we used to have 6 districts and now we've got 5. We used to have 6 district officers, council officers, looking after 6 districts. Now we have 5 districts. We still have 6 council officers being paid. Yeah. And what they've done with the districts are really, really interesting. So the North District, right? So here, you can see it all. Crompton, Royton, North Royton, South and Shore. Kind of makes sense, you know. So they've shoved that together. All right. Central District, Alexander, Coldhurst and St. Mary's. Interesting. Really interesting. So these are some of the cartel areas. Alexander, Coldhurst and St. Mary's. Here they are. Okay. And then the fun and games start. The West District. The 3 Chadderton wards. Chadderton North, Chadderton South, Chadderton Central. And do you know what they just did? They've taken the cartel ward of Werneth out and thrown it in with Chadderton. So North Chadderton and Werneth now, joined together, control all of this. They control all of this area here, what they call the West District. So Chadderton is controlled by Werneth and North Chadderton. cartel. The Bangladeshis and the Pakistanis, overwhelmingly. The East District is hilarious. The three Saddleworth wards, you understand, they go together. They've thrown Waterhead in there. Remember last week I shared with you, before any of this was confirmed in the public, I shared with you how Waterhead was now a cartel ward. But they've also thrown St. James in. So what they've done there is they've thrown in St. James, even though a Conservative councillor's come in there and they're starting to make some waves there. So they've watered down any power or influence. So all of this has been handed over. Oh no, not to the Conservatives, who have the majority of councillors in Saddleworth, or the Lib Dems. No, no, no. It's been handed over to a woman called Angela Cosgrove, a Labour Party councillor, whose only time she ever speaks in a council meeting is at a confirmed, at a recorded vote, where you've got to say yes or no when someone asks you a question. She's never spoken, no leadership skills whatsoever, and she now is in charge of all of this. She's now in charge of all of this. You'll have to tell me what Durka has in common with Greenfield, but I'll leave that to you. Wornoth, Father Samosa, has been handed over to Chadderton. Wornoth has been lumped in with Chadderton. They've carved this up so that the cartels can control, or the Labour Party can control, as much of the town as possible. And in the south, Failsworth East, Failsworth West, and Hollingwood. You understand that, don't you? You understand that. Failsworth East, Failsworth West, and Hollingwood being put together makes sense. You know what doesn't make sense? How you feeling, Brian Hoban? You enjoyed being shafted? Have you even worked out that you've been shafted? No, you've not even worked it out that you've been shafted, have you? You're doing a disservice. Failsworth Independence, you're doing a disservice to the people of Failsworth. You need to learn the rules of the game. And if you can't, you need to go and find someone who'll teach you the rules of the game. And if you think you can do a deal with AROOJ SHAH, you genuinely are thick as pig shit. Did you get a position on there, Brian? No, you didn't, did you? Because it got handed over to Medlock Vale. Medlock Vale now control the Pakistanis from Medlock Vale. Remember, they're moving into Hollingwood. I told you, didn't I, last week? I told you. Exactly. So Labour has a majority on each district, which means funds can be blocked or agreed to each area. That's exactly what's took place. And what have the Failsworth Independents done? Bugger all. Did they say a word? Did they even understand? No. Soul down the river. Oh, we want to work with the Labour Party. Oh yeah. I'll tell you what's gone on with Failsworth Independence. It's not a joke, Sally. It's called politics. And if you're thick as pig shit and you can't see what these people have done because you're falling asleep at the end of a meeting, I'm not obviously referring to you, Sally. I'm referring to the councillors in there. And they rush it through. Then you shouldn't be in that room in the first place. You're there to fight. You're there elected to fight for the people of the town, not to grovel up to the establishment that's already there, hoping that, your aspiration isn't to be accepted by them. The more they despise you, the more you are doing the job that you're elected to do. Failsworth has been sold out. And the Failsworth independents, remember, independents, didn't even understand what took place in the meeting, haven't issued a statement. And I'll tell you what they're doing with the Failsworth councillors, because it's what I would do with the Failsworth councillors. I'd tie them up in knots. I'd have them sit on committees where the time is tied up, but where they have little, if any, influence. Pander to them, to their faces, knowing full well that not only will they be ineffective, we can then demonstrate that they're ineffective. So when we go out again, if not this May, definitely next May, we can campaign on the basis that, look, see, we're in power. If you vote for us, you'll have councillors who can actually make a difference in the town hall for you, rather than these Failsworth independents, and they'll be gone like that. Because that's politics. So you suck up to AROOJ SHAH, sell me out, sell the people of Failsworth out, grow a backbone, start to ask some questions, start to stand up for yourselves, and recognise that no matter how you want it to be, it isn't that way. These people are our enemies, they are not our friends, and you have been elected to fight them on behalf of the people who elected you. So, each district committee gets a chairman, chairwoman, chairperson. Labour, across the board, naturally. Each of them gets paid £6,000. Oh yes, did I not mention that? Each of them gets paid an additional £6,000. And in 2 areas, there are deputies as well. I don't know if the deputies get paid. It wouldn't surprise me if they also got some of your hard-earned council tax money. They can call them what they want, Charles. They get paid £6,000. And then there are deputies. But in 3 of the areas, there were no deputies. In North, Crompton, Royton, North Royton, South and Shaw, they had a deputy because Howard Sykes did a deal with the Labour Party, and one of his councillors became a deputy. Just give me a second, I'll just bring it up. Diane Williamson, Lib Dem councillor, suddenly became a deputy. And in Saddleworth, in the East District, the Conservative Pam Brine, who's been hanging around AROOJ SHAH like a bad smell, also became a deputy. No deputy for you, was there, Brian Hoban? No. Why is that, Brian Hoban? Why did they get a deputy in North, in Crompton, Royton and Shaw? Why did they get a deputy in Saddleworth, St James and Waterhead? And in Failsworth West, Failsworth East? No, no deputy there, was there? Did he even read the paperwork, lad? Did you even read the paperwork? Mark has just sent me a message. He can't respond to my comments. No idea, Mark. You've got to be signed in, I think, on your YouTube channel. So you've got to be signed in on Google, I think, Mark, to respond. So you're more than welcome to do that. It's nothing at my end that I've done. But no, sorry. If you want to get offended, get offended. Because you've had rings run round you. And every month you're having rings run round you. You're trying to do deals with the Labour Party and the Labour Party have just shafted you. Black and white, they've just shafted you. They've put Medlock Vale in with Failsworth. They've put Coppice in with Failsworth. Someone explain to me how Coppice fits in with Failsworth. You can't, can you? Because it doesn't. And I've followed all of the pages for the last week since the council meeting. No one has commented on this. Because this is a massive power grab. So yes, if you can't see it's a massive power grab, you are thick as pig shit. If you're not prepared to speak out against this massive power grab, then you don't deserve all of the votes you've got. And I'll say that to the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, everyone. And no, I'm not blocking anybody. I'll come and sit in Failsworth this week if you want. And anyone in Failsworth can ask me and I'll explain this to you. And you can try and defend what's took place. And your failures to stand up to this. It's because they don't understand it, Jack. They don't understand it. You've got to invest. You've got to invest this. And read all of the stuff. You also, those of you who watched the meeting, saw what happened to Mark again. And I like Mark. I have no issue with Mark. He's not the leader of the Failsworth Independents. He tried to raise a point of order on the public question time and he just got shouted down. He just got shouted down by the mayor. Do you know what should have happened if they'd got their act together and understood the process? Someone phoned me up this week and said, Roger, your stuff is getting a bit boring now. I'm like, no, it's getting technical because to understand the rules of the game, to understand how to win, you've got to take the time out to read the small print, to understand the details. What should have happened, if you want to change the public question time, and the point Mark made was legitimate. There's a youth council, I think, has half an hour for some reason. The public have 15 and the public always runs out. Can we not do something there? Lads, you can table a motion. There's 3 of you now. Not one of you. You've seen the Liberal Demo. What were they? What are the motions? Thanking the Ramblers. Was that not one of the motions? Something to do with climate change. Universal credit last month. Right, let's write a letter to the government. Spend an hour ranting. There's been 4 council meetings since you guys have been elected. Have you took a single motion? Why not? They've got that, haven't they? Proposer and seconder. They've got 3 councillors. 3, you know. And I listened to Hindle's question. He did well. He got up and asked a question. I thought his question was good. He presented himself well. Asked a powerful question. And no, I'm not picking on the Failsworth independents. I'm just looking at this and I can see the frustration of people around me, and I can see what the Labour Party are up to. Because if the Failsworth independents fall, then the opposition elsewhere in the town falls, because people will think, what's the point? What's the point? And it was classic local government politics tactics. Bore the shit out of you. And with 5 minutes left to go, rush it through, and before anyone's woken up, they've voted it through, carved up the town into 5 districts that they now control. Because surely what should have took place, and the councillors, all of them, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, but you can see, Pam Burm's done her own deal. Sheldon's not going to fight, is he? You can see Graham Sheldon's not going to fight. The Lib Dems are cozied up to the Labour administration anyway. But say, where was the alternative proposal for how the districts should have been carved up? There's not a single person in Failsworth who's going to say it's right that we're combined with Coppice. There's not a single person in Failsworth who's going to say, why haven't we got a deputy when other areas have? And even if they'd carved it up this way, with these are the 5 districts, if you listen to the end of that council meeting, it's a 3-hour council meeting, and it's all played out in 5 minutes at the end. If you listen to the end, you'll see people don't even know, the councillors don't even know who's standing where as leads or deputies. And the mayor forced it through. Of course, it could have been carved up differently. Would you put Coppice in with Failsworth? Would you put St James Durker in with Greenfield? How on earth has Wernerth ended up in Chadderton? No. Comprehensively outmaneuvered. Comprehensively outmaneuvered. And sorry, You're occupied with this bullshit. Of course they could. They could have, one, suggested alternative district arrangements. This didn't just materialise out of thin air. They could have proposed alternative district arrangements. They could have proposed alternative ways of electing district leads. So let me explain. Why would you have a councillor from Failsworth, and I'm picking on Failsworth just because I am, why would you have a councillor from Failsworth voting on who is the district lead for Royton? You wouldn't, would you? Why would you have a councillor from Saddleworth voting on who is the district lead in Chadderton? So the second thing they could have done is push for that. Actually, once we've agreed the districts, is for the councillors in those districts to select. They could have come up with 6 districts. Who decided to knock it down from 6 to 5? I feel sorry for the people of St. James. I feel sorry for the people of Failsworth. I feel sorry for the people of Chadderton. And there's that, isn't there, mate? There's that. There's a history of 7 townships. You know, Oldham Metropolitan Borough with the 7 little squares underneath? It's for the councillors, Marlene. It's for the councillors that get paid an allowance to read the bloody paperwork that they get. And I'm criticising all of them in the opposition. See, Sally? You can see what they've done now, can't you? How can someone in Hollingwood have a vote for what happens in Royton? How can someone in Failsworth have a vote for what happens in Greenfield? How can someone in Werneth, St Mary's or Cldrs vote for what happens in Crompton when they're carving up districts? There was a time, Nick, when there was training courses for new councillors. And people who got on board also had training courses through the towns where they became councillors, as well as the party having access to a bank of training for new councillors. So the Labour Party have their own training programmes. They mentor new councillors with experienced councillors. It's where I received my political education. It was in that space. No, Marlene, I think it's worse. I don't think they were even aware of what was taking place around them. I don't think they were even aware of what was taking place around them. I've been nothing but complimentary of the young councillor Beth Sharp or Sahar Abid. She represents St James. Does Councillor Sharp? How does she feel of her ward, the people of her community being sold out and lumped in with Saddleworth. She didn't say a single word in that meeting. Why? Was it because she was disgusted? That's how Pam Burm had done a deal. My contempt, and it is contempt, and if you want to take it personal like the Proud of Oldham lot do, then fine, take it personal. But I don't mean it personal. You've got to do better. You've got to stand up for the working class communities that have elected you to fight this corrupt Labour Party administration. I don't care if you're a Conservative, I don't care if you're Lib Dem, I don't care if you're Failsworth Independent. You've got to do better. They get them weeks in advance, Julie, and the way it comes through is through committees and all the rest of it. No, Sally, the deputies matter. If they didn't matter, they'd have just had them across all 5 of them. The fact that they've only got them in the wards where deals were done. I'll explain. In Royton, Barrelgate Bashforth is in charge. So to appease the Lib Dems, a Lib Dem councillor, Dan Williamson, was put in place as a deputy. In Saddleworth, they parachuted in Angela Cosgrove, who's never said a word in St. James, to lead the entire area. 5 wards. 5 wards. A woman who's never said a word. 5 wards. But because Pam Burm has been brown-nosing AROOJ Shah, she secured herself a deputy so she can, turn up with a fancy earrings and a necklace on and drink tea and biscuits. And in Failsworth, and I'm picking on Failsworth again, where Pete Davis has been put in, they've decided no deputy. Why have they decided no deputy? Is it because 3 of the councillors are Failsworth independents and they'd have to give one of them a deputy position? Yeah. So this was the real story of the council meeting. Not thanking the ramblers, or passing a motion climate change, whilst ignoring the toxic tower. It wasn't the Conservative motion on, what was it? To submit an application to the Heritage Commission, or was it National Heritage? To get a portion of Saddleworth designated as... Listen, they spent close to an hour. Luke Lancaster spoke. Max Woodvine spoke. They all applauded, and then the Labour Party worked with them on passing a motion. Idiots. The motion was to submit an application, by the way. If you have any understanding of how local government works, if you pass a motion for the council to agree to submit an application, it's not something for a full council meeting where 45 minutes is eaten up. It's something you do at a committee stage below that. They're being played. They're being played. Is it my job to reach out to them? And you want me to reach out to them after what Brian Hoban said? Whilst he was thumbs up with AROOJ SHAH? He did a deal with AROOJ SHAH and he's just been shafted. That's what's took place. The minutes are published on the council's webpage, Lynn. Everyone was aware. Now, I wasn't aware of the vote, of how the vote would play out. I wasn't aware of whether others would be silent. I'm not the councillor here, Lynn. Or go and get yourself educated. The Labour Party, in partnership with the Liberal Democrats, are running rings. And do you know what will happen? Do you know what the long-term game is? Come 2023, they want to demonstrate that the independents are completely ineffective, so there's no point in voting for them. And in the working class areas where the Conservatives are starting to make some gains, they want to show that they are also completely ineffective because the Labour Party is doing deals with the Conservatives in Saddleworth. You don't need to be a genius to work out or to see in front of you what is taking place. And no, I know many of you have loyalties to the Failsworth Independents. I do. I do. I am genuinely loyal to them. But they need to know what is taking place and how they're being played. And if they want to cozy up to these Labour Party councillors, then so be it. They'll get played at every opportunity. And come election, Labour Party will knock on the doors in Failsworth and say, see, they're useless. Because this May will change next to nothing. In terms of the, at the end of it, the Labour Party will still be in control. Hopefully with a smaller majority, but they'll still be in control. No, Charles. No. Labour are able to run things the way they are because there is a complete absence of opposition in the town hall. It's not voter apathy. The elections last May clearly demonstrated that people will go out and vote in the thousands, hopeful of change. You want to get serious? Get serious. If you don't want to get serious, carry on as you are. Look lost at this. They call it the Green Book, by the way, the papers that come out beforehand. Ignore that. Look, what happened? What did this do there? What happened? Hey bro, you see what happened there? Howard Sykes, like this. You've seen it all before. Sat there like this. Sam al-Hamdan, who's actually in a civil war with Howard Sykes for control of the Lib Dems, like, hey, what have you just done? He had a good meeting actually, Sam. He had a good meeting. Conservatives, Sahar didn't turn up. Gave her apologies. Some other councillor gave her apologies as well, but I don't understand why you can give your apologies for a council meeting when you've been elected as a councillor, as a full council meeting. The dates are pre-set in your diary. They're set for the full year. There's what, 9, 10 council meetings in a year? They do it to eat up time, Jan, and bore you. So when the real stuff happens, you don't realise it's happened. Why do you think the council removed broadcasts of 2 full council meetings? It's because we put them under pressure and we exposed them from the outside in. Why do you think the MP, several MPs, the police are so busy trying to close this down? It's because I'm politically educating you. I'm not shouting and screaming at you. And I'm begging the councillors who want better for the town to be better themselves. And if you listen to me, you'll see me repeat this phrase every bloody week. Learn the rules of the game. Learn the rules of how a council operates. And honestly, I can't stand the Labour Party and the way they run this town. But what they did on Wednesday night was ruthless. Ruthlessly efficient. Ruthlessly effective. And a ruthless demonstration of what a group of people who understand the rules can and will do. Okay, enough of that. To my friends in Failsworth, if I've in any way offended you, I apologise. I've definitely not blocked any of you from commenting. And I'm happy, if I'm ever of use, to come and sit with you and try and be as helpful as I can. The same goes to the Conservatives, the same goes to the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems don't need me. They know exactly what they're doing. They're playing both sides. So, let me, give me one moment. I just need to bring up the next section. Please like the post, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Yeah, the meetings are always online. And you're right, Sheila. Absolutely spot on. Thanks, Evan. You get paid £6,000 a year. I know in Manchester the councillors get something like £18,000 or £19,000 a year, but the basic's £6,000 a year. So Mark and Kath have sent a message. I don't know who from that. And it's fine. You can be angry with me. It's no problem. I'm not discrediting you, guys. I'm not discrediting you. I'm imploring you to do better. This isn't me discrediting you. I'm imploring you to do better. Mark, you stood up to try and make a valid point about the question time in the council, and you got shouted down and you got put down by the mayor. The way in which you make that point, and it's valid, of extending question time so more members of the public have time to ask their questions, which we all agree with, is by putting a motion forward. It's not my job to educate you on that. I'm not sat in an ivory tower as you claim. It's not my job to educate you. It's £10,000 in Oldham. Okay, well there you go. So each councillor gets an allowance of £10,000. And no, I haven't done a good job on you. This isn't me trying to turn it around as though I've attacked the fails of independence isn't what I've done. And I challenge any one of the 60 odd people who are watching now to say I've attacked and tried to undermine the fails of independence. You've got to do better. For yourselves, as well as the rest of the town. And it isn't my job. And if you need help, you've all got my phone number. But you guys went to do a deal with AROOJ SHAH. You went to do a deal with AROOJ SHAH, which is why Brian Hoban met with her. And you got played. And in the midst of all of that, Mark Wilkinson has had a torrid time of abuse from a malicious blogger, clearly at the direction of the Labour Party. So no, I'm not sat in an ivory tower. I'm sat in a place where I'm trying my best from the place I can to nudge people along and if you can't deal with that, that's not on me. Learn the rules of the game. There is no reason why Coppis should be in control of Failsworth. There is no reason why St. James, Durker, should be in Greenfield. Okay, so my thing's bleeping. You're more than welcome to phone me, Mark. I'll put you on. You're more than welcome to phone me and I'll put you on. There was 100% a deal with AROOJ SHAH. You can see by the photograph that went up and the comments that went up. And the deal was, because there was an admittance of a deal. We want to work for the best of Failsworth and we'll work across parties to do it. The only problem is, you did a deal with a woman who just outmaneuvered you. She had no intention of doing a deal with you. I don't even think that's political ignorance. I'm not going to call you ignorant. I don't think you are. I think it's political naivety. Because when you go into a space to do a deal such as that, you have an agreement for the exchange. And that agreement, based upon how it's played out, should have been for Failsworth and Hollingwood to be the three wards together. Failsworth East, Failsworth West and Hollingwood, because that's how Oldham as a map works. Not to have Medlock Vale thrown in with you. And that deal should have been for you to be recognised as either the lead or the deputy lead. So of course you tried to do a deal. You just got played. You're not going to defend what's took place because the district committees will be powerful. You know, you put yourself forward as the Failsworth Independent Party. What does that mean? That means the people of Failsworth taking more of an active role in making decisions for themselves. Completely right. Absolutely 100% spot on. Oh, I did say thick as pig shit. And there's a context in where I said thick as pig shit. It's there recorded. Go and listen to it. Go and listen to the context. You've been played, guys, and you want to turn it around onto me? Turn it around onto me. It makes no difference to me. When 2022 comes, and the election, you might get 1, you might get 2 in. But if you carry on the way you are, Labour will just sweep up in 2023. Because you've not been able to bring about the change for the people who are voting for you. And that goes for the same. Not picking on you. That goes for the same for Beth Sharp. It goes for the same in the Conservative in Royton. It's disappointing because they're looking for someone to turn it around and say as though I've done something wrong. I didn't just pick on Failsworth, I picked on all of it. Look, I put it all up. I've put it all up. You can see it there. I put it all up. I objected to the carving up of the entire town. I criticised the Conservatives. In fact, I'll criticise them some more. Beth Sharp should have spoken up in that council meeting. Sahabid should have been there. Sorry, I forget the guy's name in Royton, the ex-military guy. He speaks well. He should have been sharp. Did the Conservatives propose alternatives across the board? I've not seen it. And yet they put a motion forward on ramblers. Ramblers, when this is being carved up. The Lib Dems got what they wanted. Well, one faction of the Lib Dems got what they wanted. Sorry, yes, Dave Arnott. Yeah. I think he's a bright man. They're not doing enough. And I'm not sat in an ivory tower. Last week, or a week before, I was alleged of joining the Conservatives, remember? Here I am, criticising them, exposing the deal they did, or the Saddleworth Conservatives did. If you listened to my transmission as I talked through the council meeting as it was played out, I even put a link up for people to complain about Graham Sheldon and his completely ineffective role as leader of the opposition. That wouldn't surprise me, Charles. So no phone call, so I presume it was just text messages to tell me off, which is fine. Do better. It's the hope we all have of you. Be the opposition. Stand up for your own community and stand up for the rest of the town. And unfortunately, in this town, the Labour Party have had a stranglehold for so long and they've got so much power. I know how frustrating it can be. I know how difficult it is. I understand the depth of the challenge. Trust me, believe me, I understand the challenge. But if we are going to take our town back in this next phase, this isn't me criticising you. It's me begging you to be better than you are. Try harder than you are. It's the rules of the game. The Conservatives, they now have enough councillors to have a research officer. So to have someone who does some of the things I do but more, better. And I said this, didn't I? I said this at the time. For the Conservatives, write in and complain. Graham Sheldon is a weak and ineffective leader. I don't think he was ever meant to be the leader. There's a civil war playing out. If you look at the history of this town and the one time an opposition party has wrestled power away from the Labour Party, it's the Liberal Democrats. And the Liberal Democrats did it by not just winning in Saddleworth and Shaw, they did it by winning in the central wards as well. The Conservatives elected 3 councillors in the central wards. Beth, Zaha and Dave. There's a chance they'll elect 3 or 4 more. Sorry. My last meeting message, I think, from it doesn't read like Mark's writing. I'd imagine it's his wife's writing. I am absolutely disappointed with you. The only shafting to be done around here is us by you, mate. Over and out. If people believe I shafted the Failsworth Independent Party here this evening, then my sincerest apologies. I do not believe I did. Nor, once they've slept on it and reflected on it, do I believe we'll see a Failsworth Independent Party act as ineffective as they have done. And if falling out with me means they get the kick up the backside they need, then I'll take that. I'll take that every day. The Conservatives have got enough councillors to have a research officer. They've not got one yet because the council have been appointing it, responsible for the appointment. They were due one in May. It's now November. Why is that? Why is that? Graham Sheldon, he just isn't. He's just not doing enough. He's just not doing enough. Don't be like that with him, Jack. It's hard. And perhaps I should have spoken to him separately. But at the very centre of the Failsworth Independent Party is the desire for independent decision making. And in a council structure such as Oldham's, that independent decision making at its centre point are the district committees. They should have been fighting for them. Okay. Let's carry on. What I'm going to do, depending on how people's time is, so it's been on for an hour. Now I'm just going to go and refill my drink because I'm clearly been affected by the exchange as well. And we'll get on with the full sound footage of the council meeting. It's an hour long, so I suggest people go and get themselves a drink. It's not my job though, is it, Julie? It's not my job. Three councillors is a significant number. Stand up for the people that elected you. I'm going to, I drink Vimto. I drink hot Vimto. So I'm going to go and get myself a hot Vimto. Some of you get yourselves a drink. Give me a couple of minutes because we've got... Sorry, guys. I know, when we started out as these explosive exposés of this happened and that happened, but we now passed that. We know the council's corrupt. We know they're bent. We know they're in bed with mobsters. We now are at a space. It's far more challenging and far more difficult. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? It's easy saying that's not good enough. But we need to move into a space of what are we going to do about it? He did, didn't he? He stood up, and I've applauded him. I've applauded him. But I can see what the strategy was. And what Wednesday's meeting shows is that strategy has comprehensively failed. You can't get in bed with the Labour Party. You can't get in bed with the Labour Party in any way. Let me get a hot Vimto. Let me come back. I've got the sound. It was smuggled out. You've seen what's happened to some people. You heard my kettle boil. Yeah. I agree, Charles. You can't do any deals with them. You can't do any deals with them. The only way he'll win is to vote them out. Let's. You don't need to see my face whilst I play this, I think. So.
And that might mean different things to different people.
So this is the meeting starting. Okay. So footage was smuggled out. 3 people have been named by Neil Wilby. The only way they'd have been named is if the names and addresses were leaked from inside the council. As though they were my trolls or my stooges. They weren't people like my trolls or my stooges. I don't ask people to go in and record anything. And interestingly, the way Wilby has been accessing information and releasing it is a violation of privacy laws in the UK, which is why Twitter took it off. If I was the people named, I would be writing a letter immediately to the borough solicitor and demanding to know who leaked details to a malicious blogger. My suspicions are it's AROOJ SHAH. And going back to the Failsworth Independence, I know that Wilby did something very similar with Mark Wilkinson, where in a meeting of only 3 or 4 people, Wilby found out something about Mark and a complaint to do with him, completely malicious. And, you know, the way he twisted it and spread it. So, but that was in a council meeting. And, you know, who was the borough solicitor? AROOJ SHAH? Maybe Mark? Someone else? No. Senior council officer? No. We all know where Wilby is getting his information from. What really should happen is both the council issued phone, council issued laptops, and also AROOJ SHAH's own personal phone should be handed over for investigation. That's what should happen. Because this is a serious violation of the data protection laws. You're invited to a council meeting to ask questions. And because the leader doesn't like the questions, your name is leaked in the press. No. If I lived in Failsworth, mate, I'm clear. I'd vote for the Failsworth Independence. I'm very clear. I'd vote for the Failsworth Independence. I just hope they get better. I want them to get better. I'm rooting for them to get better. And I still am, Denise. I completely agree with you. Of course we are. Of course we are. Yeah.
And that might mean different things to different people. But essentially is, as the leader has just introduced herself, it's about making sure this council is relevant and delivering for the residents of the borough, and trying to deliver opportunities for the residents of the borough so that they can have a good family, good opportunity, good quality of life. So 2 months in, and I have to say it's certainly meeting my expectations. Yes, there are challenges, we know about that, and there are some amazing opportunities which we can and we intend to push forward on. But tonight, and I was delighted to be invited to meet right across the borough, meetings like this, and this is our second one, because actually it is about listening. And far too often, I'm, as an office chief executive, you're too quick at rushing and doing, and we don't take enough time to listen. And so you can ask any question tonight, you can make any observation or any comment. Our commitment to you is, and I can't pretend that me and AROOJ will have all the answers, but our commitment is we'll take a note of those issues, and if you have signed in and possibly an email, we will circulate after tonight to everybody that's attended an update on those issues. And you'll see for yourself that, that's what you raised, and that's our latest understanding. So the floor is yours. We are definitely here. We're not going to do a big presentation. It's your floor, your issue. We'll try and respond now if we can, and if we can't, we'll capture the issues and come back to you on any matter.
So who wants to go first?
Well, I'm Bernadette Kilroy. I live on Ashes Lane at Springhead. You said you've got over 2,000 people who work for you. What I think is they're very disconnected, because I think they work in departments, but what they've missed is the core value, which is the work for Oldham Council. They're not working as a unity, as a one blob. So, like, if I send an email to ask a question to, say, refuse department, and it leads on to another area, it's stopped then, and I've got to go and contact somebody else and start the whole thing again. I sent an email a few weeks ago to the highways about this awful situation on Leeds Road. It seemed to me that every access out of Saddleworth towards Oldham was blocked with temporary traffic lights. It's an absolute nightmare. And I counted that from on Leeds Road towards Cross Street, there's 7 stops. There's crossings, temporary traffic lights, there's a new traffic light at Mount Pleasant, and now they're putting up new traffic lights at Welland Street. 7 stops on the short space time. Anyway, just to cut to the chase, I haven't had a reply. I've had a holding email to say, we've got you, 14 days. And then, bizarrely, one morning, I looked at my phone, 5:10 in the morning, I got an email from somebody from the utility partnership. And all I can say to you, I was just dumbfounded when I read it. It was just completely and utterly unsuitable. I mean, the answer was ridiculous. And it started off with, there's a problem with a building on Leeds Road near Bruton Road, that needs propping up. I mean, I said to them, it's no surprise to anybody who's been going, those buildings have been worked to absolute shells. Anyway, that's by the point. But so if you want any more answers, speak to the Highways Department. No answer. And I sent him another email to say, can I have an answer? No answer. Still.
Okay, so I'll play that through. So you hear it, but it's it's a woman who turned up to one of these meetings genuinely frustrated, every right to be there, and it's a recurring theme that many of you have, is the contempt in which the council treat them. It's the contempt in which the council treat members of the public, in particular the council officers.
Still wait, and that's what I found with Oldham Council. I'll say to them, what's happening about what's this adult precept thing on the charges on the council tax. 4 weeks later, I got an email saying follow this link, and I sent them a message back saying stunning. It's taken you 4 weeks to just give me a link to read it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying to you. It's all disconnected.
So thank you. You've raised quite a few issues.
So straight away you can see, and this plays through, you'll see the pattern, it's Dirty Harry who's taking the lead, and Dirty Harry is kind of like a gatekeeper to AROOJ SHAH in these meetings, so he wants to answer the question.
Well, actually, they are linked, those issues, and I'm going to be straight with you. I've recognised that in my first 2 months, some of that silo working.
Yeah, it is
so
really silo.
So I have already, with the permission and support of the Leader of the Council, I've started a reorganisation of the council, not to spend any more money. I've been very clear. I've got to do it within a current budget, and I've actually committed to a saving. But I'm reorganising the senior management of the organisation to ensure that we work to a more joined-up council. There should be none of this. Thank you very much, but please can you ring another department?
Okay, so an admittance from the council chief executive that the council is working in silos and passing the buck from one department to another when the public get in touch. Okay, so there's an admittance there.
Be internally capable of linking with each other and getting one response. So that is our commitment to you. I hope if we're here again in a few months' time, you see some of that improvement coming through. You should get responses. It's pointless sending you to other links. The reference to adult social care precept, it's an easy one to explain, so I apologise that you've had such a poor response. The country knows, absolutely, the cost of adult social care is massive, absolutely massive. We've got thousands of people in Oldham. We've got significant multi-million-pound overspend on the budget because more and more people, thankfully, are living longer. More and more people, however, need a lot more support as they age. Adults with disabilities, a significant number of older people need support either at home or in a care or nursing home, and it's costing millions. We have not been, and I'm not a politician, but we haven't been properly funded. Very recently, these last 4 or 5 years, the government have said you can put a precept on your council tax. That's one way of contributing to the increasing cost of adult social care. And we've been told and directed that that's where we have to get our money from for adult social care.
That's not actually true, but it gets worse for Dirty Harry.
I've heard the news a couple of weeks ago that the Chancellor has decided to increase national insurance for everybody as a contribution to NHS backlog and adult social care of the future. And we've also been told that from April, you need to put your council tax up with a precept for adult social care.
Okay, so he's claiming The government have instructed the council to put the council tax up. I've looked everywhere and I can't find anything to confirm that. The Chief Executive of Oldham Council is claiming that the government have instructed councils to increase the council tax. You've heard that. That's not true. He's playing politics. The Chief Executive is playing politics. He shouldn't do that. That's not his job. But it's immediately playing politics. You can see his narrative. Yeah. You can see the narrative he's trying to spin. If I was, and again, if I was a Conservative councillor, if I was the Liberal Democrats, and there were two Liberal Democrats there, Sam Al-Hamdani was there, and Kenyon was there. So there were two Liberal Democrats there. They sat silently whilst this, is it a lie, deception, was told. And of course it had nothing to do with the answer to the question, Gary. So the Chief Executive answered that question. You saw that. The first question, the Chief Executive took control and answered it.
That's not politics, that's fact. And that's me as an officer saying...
So that's not politics, that's fact. No, it's not. It is politics and it isn't fact. That's not politics, that's fact. No.
I try and balance the council's books, yeah, to ensure that the most vulnerable people in this area and across the borough, if they need help to stay at home and stay independent, or if they need help in a care home or a nursing home, that we've got the funding to do it. Because it is not acceptable to say, we can't help you. We have to, legally, and we want to, because these are people who've worked their life in this borough, and they deserve our support as they get older, and I'm sure you'd all agree with that. So that's those two issues, but the main point you raise is a really good one, and you know, I commit to, we need to be a much more joined up council, and none of this handing over.
Yeah, and it's actually unacceptable, but I'm not surprised that you're that frustrated, because we're here as elected members and we represent residents all the time, and we hear this all the time. And I think that's why when I became leader, I didn't make any grand announcements apart from being more resident focused as an organisation. But actually, there's, if I'm to be really honest, I did find that there was a massive cultural issue within the organisation. Lots of people who come to work to do a good job, because I don't believe anybody goes to work to do a bad job. Really hard working individuals, but actually there is that disconnect, and whether that's like budgetary pressures or like departments that have been, the capacities have shrinked over the years, whatever it is, Harry's been tasked to address that, because it's just not good. And actually, I don't know anything about you or your life, so I don't know how complicated or chaotic it is, but I know lots of residents that are in a situation where they only get in touch with us when they're at the end of their tether. And if their experiences that they're getting passed from pillar to post, then absolutely unacceptable under my leadership that will happen. And whilst I do have some understanding around staffing, nobody comes before residents to me. And until we don't get to a place where absolutely people, it doesn't mean you get the answer that you're going to like at the end of it, but actually people should be responding immediately. And you shouldn't be getting told after waiting 14 days or 15 days or however long you said it was, that you then have to go to a different department and start that process. We should have a system that automatically forwards stuff on and get somebody to get back to you or whatever, but it has to be more seamlessly than what your experience has been. I can only apologise for that, but I'm working damn hard to make sure that that isn't the experience for people going forward.
Okay, I'm just going to pause it there, and you're going to hear me say something. It's a day for first. I've pissed off the Failsworth lot. Now, it's a spot-on answer, isn't it? You know, when the council leader spoke, it's a spot-on answer. Now, put aside, if you can, that what the woman was asking is, why are you taking so long to get back in touch with me? You know, one of the fundamental, simplest roles of a council. And what AROOJ SHAH is essentially saying is what we've been saying from the beginning. This is an officer-led council. They all come in from South Manchester. They treat Oldham townsfolk with contempt, draw massive wages, and go home. And those of us who live in the town know they've been doing that for years. So why has it not been challenged before? Have the people of the town not mattered before? But what's the system? What's the system? Harry goes on about, you know, he's been here and he's going to implement in this system. He's spotted it and he's implementing this system. But what's the system? He's not going to hire any new staff, he said. So how are you going to deal with it? AROOJ SHAH references a culture. It's a cultural issue. So that cultural issue is the people of the town don't matter. That's what she's acknowledging. The people of the town don't matter. Yeah, I've not misheard it, have I, Nick? I've not misheard it, have I? It's a cultural issue. We don't talk to the people of our town. So what are you going to do? Are you going to publish performance indicators? Is there a single point of contact? Is there a designated person? What's your system? What is the system now and what is the system you're going to introduce? That's where my credit to her stops. Because, and I'm laughing because I've worked with Nick in the past. There's no system introduced in the council and there won't be a system introduced in the council. It's just noise. It's just absolute noise. Yeah. It gets worse, mate. It gets worse.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I just...
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Can I just jump on where you mentioned that you've put a stop on spending? Harry, you've just mentioned that in your speech. When did you decide, or when did OMBC decide that it needed to recruit 2 more positions with an annual salary of 280,000? Was that before appointing your temporary position, or is that since?
Which 2 salaries for 280,000?
There's 2 advertised on your web.
So that's the beginning of AROOJ SHAH's defence. Which 2 salaries for 200? Are you telling me as leader of Oldham Council you weren't aware of the signing off of 2 massive new deputy leader positions? Because she's like, which 2 salaries? You heard that? Which 2 salaries?
Website today.
The 2 deputy chief execs. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a quick look and it just kind of stamped. Was that before or after?
Well, that was after. That's what I've just said to you in my opening presentation.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it wasn't clear that I've done a restructure.
Yeah.
Can they not be cancelled now then?
I don't want to cancel. They're actually part of the solution. So within current costs, that's not additional cost, I've actually deleted other positions
Yeah.
to create these new roles, which are about joining up the services. So I'll tell you what they are. One of them is to focus on growing the economy and jobs and opportunities and getting inward investment into Oldham, tapping into Greater Manchester Combined Authority, nationally with government to bring investment into Oldham, to drive forward and deliver what is already there, massive potential, but it needs an expertise to drive and deliver the regeneration, the job growth, and the environmental issues and challenges we face. That's one job.
Okay, so the first job is to drive in investment into the town. Wow. What have they been doing for the last couple of decades? They've not had a person designated to drive in investment to the town. Oh, you won't get any of that, Lynn. So the first job is to drive investment into the town.
so I'll have 2 deputies, will be about all the people services, from adult social care, child protection, public health, moving upstream to community safety, which is a big issue for us, all of that, to join them up. And then...
Okay, so the second job, they're in trouble. It's about a community safety, safeguarding, they're in trouble. So they're already preempting the grooming gang report and a whole host of other issues they've got that they've clearly been covering up. So that's the second job. Some form of super head of safeguarding.
Look at the NHS, look at the police, look at those wider sectors to create a joined up approach. The very point the lady was making. We've got a situation where children are children, adults are adult, but hey ho, when they become 18 there's a handover. I don't want a handover, I want a smooth plan all the way through it, cradle to grave. And actually when we do that, we can then, this person will be looking at, how do we invest earlier? Because, do you know what, we've got millions of pounds of overspend that we have to contain and look at. Well, if we can invest earlier in prevention, then I hope to alleviate that. So I took that report, I've drafted that structure since I arrived, spent that in the first 2 months, and that's what I said. I was pleased that the leader supported me, and it went through full council last night, so all 3 political parties supported me last night, so I'm absolutely delighted.
So there you go. Every councillor supported that, or every political party supported that, which is the council will hire someone on £150,000 a year to find external investment, like they found it for the last 20 years. So they're going to hire someone at £140,000 to do that, and they're going to hire someone to try and cover up for the mess around safeguarding, because they know what the report says, don't they? We know they know what the report says. This provided the evidence for the report. We know they know. So that's it, Gary. And you can see twice. So 2 questions, and he's answered both of them. Yes? And sorry, I was going to edit this, but I didn't want to edit this because I didn't want you to get an impression that I'd done something to it. So I'm just going to play it through like I am doing.
I'll look to recruit these during November, and they will make a difference, and they will pay for themselves multiple times, even though I've not asked for any additional money from the management budget because I've deleted other positions to fund it. Is that okay?
So he's deleted other positions to fund it. I think it's only fair that Harry Catherall list the positions he's deleted to fund this. So one for Anita if she's here, or Charles, or one of the others. Submit an FOI request. Ask how these positions have been budgeted in, and also ask for copies of the performance indicators of these, because he's claimed it himself. These people will pay for themselves several times over. I don't think he realizes what we're going to do, Oldham I, and how forensic we are at doing it.
Yep.
Hiya, Alicia Marland, I live in Broughton. I've been part of the local residents group for about 20 years, and throughout that period, and it's not just the last of the period of lockdown, but sort of community policing has really significantly dropped off, where we don't really see any sort of community police anymore. They certainly don't attend our local community meetings anymore. And I think the knock-on as well is just kind of part and parcel really, is speeding issues, traffic issues that we have in the area, of people just racing through, and it's really the lack of visibility or presence really of any policing to make sure that these matters are being dealt with. So I know you touched on policing.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. Yeah, we can both speak to that.
Okay, so once again, you can see who is leading the answer. Yeah, you can see who's leading the answer. I'm not there, I've not swayed it in any way. So the lady from Grotton's question was really about visible policing, wasn't it? She wanted more visible police officers. Actually, that's not in the gift of the council. And one of the things we teach is, in terms of powerful questions, is asking the right questions to the right people. So the question really shouldn't be, we know you agree, but how are you going to lobby the police to do more? That's what the question should be. So this is the third time he's answering the question for her. Yes, Gary, I'm keeping up as well, I think. Yeah, third time. Yep.
Yeah, so I think GMP have had their fair share of issues, which are here for everybody to see. We have new leadership within GMP. I've had the opportunity to meet the Chief Constable, Stephen Watson, and the local new divisional commander who attended full council last night to talk about their 5-point plan. And I think they recognise that and they understand that actually things have to change. And whilst there are inefficiencies and budgetary pressures on all organisations, whether it's public sector or private sector, there is a big necessity to do the things that are the most important, and it's the things that you've just suggested. How do we feel safe within our communities, safe, and how do we know that people are listening and addressing our concerns? Now, he did say to us yesterday, because obviously as a local authority, the GMP are a valued stakeholder and partner, but we don't really direct or have any influence over their operational structures. But what the new leadership...
Okay, so she roundabout gets to the point I just made, is it's not for the council to direct the police, and it shouldn't be. But remember, the woman who asked this question was the Liberal Democrat candidate for Saddleworth Western Lees. So why is she asking this question? I don't believe she's stupid. I don't believe she's gone to the wrong place. This is called effective partnerships. When you control the opposition and the opposition asks the questions on your behalf in meetings, it gives you space to grandstand. And we've seen that in the council chamber, and we're now seeing that in these big con meetings.
We have committed to is ensuring that they focus on community policing, because they understand that is the foundation of any strong, resilient community. So they will be doing that. Now, he did say to us yesterday that he needs a bit of time to work through them structures. But I agree, we hear it all the time, no matter where you go in the borough. And even as residents ourselves, we feel it, don't we? And you know that you can't replace that. You have to see police that are visible on our streets, but there to support us. Yeah, and it's important.
It's been your first name terms.
Yeah,
I couldn't even tell you who
absolutely.
Is now.
Yeah.
But it's such an important point.
Okay, so AROOJ Shah's response was agreeing. Yes, we need to see more police in the streets, but we don't have the power to do that. So what's the purpose of the meeting? It was just right there. There, you captured the purpose of these meetings. It's not to deal with your questions. It's not to give you solutions. It's not to share expertise and strategy within the council. It's for her to try and win across people. So she can say, I'm one of you. I agree with you. I agree with you. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Yeah, it's exactly that. It's that coalition in the garden, wasn't it? With David Cameron and Nick Clegg. Yeah. Can you see that? Yeah.
Raised, which has been recognised, and there's a commitment that they will respond to it, i.e. they being GMP. So, for instance, the divisional commander, we used to share one with Tameside. Tameside and Oldham shared the divisional commander.
And Rochdale, actually.
And was that Rochdale?
Yeah,
so now we've got our own.
Yeah.
So with effect from this month, so the Chief Constable has said every area has to have their own team headed up by a divisional commander.
Yeah.
And the reason why he said that is because they've been put in special measures, accelerated special measures, and they're at risk of being took over by a different police force. So they've not done this because they want to. They've done this because they have to. And you met the guy at the council meeting last week.
Which is a big investment, and ours has just started a couple of weeks ago.
So a big investment. You should count yourself lucky that we've spent this money.
And last night, Chris Boyd to speak to us. Brand new, he's been brought in, excellent track record. Been brought in, he lives over in Yorkshire with a Welsh accent. So when you meet him, you'll recognise him. Yorkshire with a Welsh accent is a good mix. But absolute, as AROOJ says, real commitment, and he's got to follow that through now. Absolutely. And you know,
and it is our job to hold them to account. So that's what we do, and we will do that. So we do make that commitment because it's important.
They have made a commitment to hold the police to account. So how do they hold them to account? How do they hold someone to account who retires in 2 years?
Just linked to that, is there anything we can do as residents to try and get more police on the ground in local areas? So, I mean, just as a little example, a few years ago I got burgled, and when the police came and attended the burglary, they said, you know, the more that you join Neighbourhood Watch yourself and speak to us, we need that, because then that gets logged and then things. So, from your perspective, is there anything that we can do? You know, do we contact the police and say, ask the question, as Alicia said, please can we have more? Would that help, or is it more voices, or what would you recommend?
I mean, me personally, I think the point you raise is a very good one, which is you know, home watch and on other things. Being vigilant, being supportive, being working with the police. Our district team could share information with you.
That's actually not the point he raised. The point he raised is how can we get more police officers on the ground? Because it was a follow-on from the first question, which was there's not enough police. So it's Harry's completely reframed what the question was.
In terms of community safety links. The police now, it's like on Facebook, they'll have a page, won't they? So the home watch schemes as was have all changed, but they're growing and feeding that information through either on a local Facebook for this area.
I think one more point, Harry, is what can residents do, or as locals, to help us get more police on the ground? So
there you go. Brave man, no idea who he is, but he interjected the chief executive and said, actually, that's not the point I was making. I want to know, how can we get more police officers on the ground?
Lobbying divisional director at that level, is it worth us doing anything, or do we just leave it to you and we'll get more police?
I think by supporting them and making that relationship with them, as you said, that's important. So it's a partnership. So without a doubt, we're all ready. It's been accepted. Oldham is going to get more police, and it starts with our very own divisional commander. I would suggest it's not worth lobbying at this stage for more and more. What we want is a fair share of the police and how they're organised, and they need help and they want relationships with people like yourselves who are committed. Everybody in this room is here because you care.
Yeah.
And that's what the police want, they care. So they want those partnerships, and you know, they can't be everywhere, but as they develop this new back to local policing, it rests on a good partnership with residents of the area, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, so 4 questions, 4 answers from the chief executive. I'm not being unfair, am I? The substantive answers were by the chief executive.
Is there any way you can look into public question times, whether we could have it extended? If you look around this room tonight, 15, 20 people here, and we've got an hour and a half to speak. About 6 times a year, in the council chambers, the whole town gets 15 minutes. There's a big, and people want to be heard. They don't want predictive answers on the net. They want to speak face to face.
Yeah, we are reviewing that. So we will be taking it forward to.
Okay. She's claimed she's reviewing it. She claims she's reviewing public questions. Charles Garrity looks through all of the council minutes far more diligently than I do. All of the various committees, because it'd have to go through committees. For her to claim it's been reviewed, it'd have to go through the most appropriate committee. I've looked at all the minutes I can find. I've seen nothing of it where the council is reviewing public questions in any way whatsoever. I've not seen a single document in the council dossiers that I've examined. And if they were reviewing it, the mayor would have made reference to it when Mark tried to raise it as a point instead of slapping him down, when Mark Wilkinson tried to raise it as a point. The council leader could have made reference to that. So I don't think that is an honest answer.
We will like have a conversation around it and see how best, but there's lots of ways that the public can engage. So this isn't a one-off time. There is, because elected members have like surgeries across the borough.
Not for a long time, we haven't.
Okay, elected members have surgeries. I spent considerable time criticising people I hope to inspire to be better tonight. That's the leader of the council. The questions a member of the public asks at a full council meeting is different to local ward surgeries because when you go to a full council meeting and you ask a question or any of the questions that are read out, you ask the most appropriate council lead, whether it be the leader of the council, the finance guy, the safeguarding guy, the adult care guy, the environment, yeah. When you go to a council surgery with your local ward councillor, they can't speak on behalf of these people. They won't have the knowledge, they won't have the expertise, they won't have the answer. The reason public questions exist is so the member of the public can go direct to source and ask that question. And the reason why it exists in a public space is so it can be recorded that way. It's a key feature, it's meant to be a key feature of democracy. I've used the term before today and got called for it. I'll use it again. I don't believe she's thick as pig shit. She's intentionally misleading.
We do, because I've been a councillor, I think we all do. We all have regular surgeries. So you have 3 councillors per ward. All of them have surgeries, and they're published in advance, aren't they?
Where are they advertised?
Yeah.
Where are they advertised?
We've only recently resurrected them because of
COVID, but
I didn't, it was a word they picked up since COVID. I thought they still disappeared.
No, we have them regularly, so all elected members do that.
Lee's Library.
Yeah, so depending on, Lee's Library's where they have theirs, but we have, like, so for example, I represent Charity South, so I have one every fortnight. But then we're constantly door knocking or picking and then telephone numbers or whatever. So
I'll say, so the door knocking is called campaigning for votes. No. And the ward surgeries, as a lady who did ask a question, I think it was Denise from what I could hear. I think Denise asked the question. It's not even about whether advertised. The purpose of the ward surgeries is not the same as the purpose of asking questions in public question time in a council meeting. And remember, the fundamental point is it's too short. And the fundamental point is then what you're doing is pre-scripted responses without a right to reply. And more often than not, you're completely ignoring the question that was asked. As we can all see. As we become more politically educated and more politically aware of how democracy works in this town. So it's kind of like the first answer out of the 5th question now, where she tries to answer. and she's telling a series of mistruths.
If people want to come and questions,
Can I
that's
just
fine.
stop you there?
Yeah.
I've lived in my present property 10 years and I've never had one knock on my door.
So I don't know why you have
It's not.
why
Exactly. We're speaking from different hymn sheets and that's what we need to sort out.
And the knocking of the door isn't the point, is it? That's not the point. Because the knocking on the door is for votes.
So whereabouts do you live?
Springhead.
No, but whereabouts in Springhead?
Hood
'Cause
Square.
which
Hood
street?
Square.
Which square?
Hood Square. Yeah.
Okay, alright, but I find that highly unlikely that nobody's ever knocked on your
Nobody's
door.
ever knocked.
Okay, so she's calling the resident a liar. So that's what she's doing. She's calling a member of the public a liar.
I've lived here 19 years.
I found out tonight that
in the
this
same
lady
house.
here is my lady representative and I can honestly say we've never met.
No, we haven't.
No.
But that's not because I haven't knocked on your door.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying you. No one has. No one's not. I haven't even got a leaflet from Labour through my door.
Well, what we do want to hear is how we can, I mean, within limited resources, how can we engage?
Yeah.
We're up for new
What I'm trying to
ideas.
say
It's not a
is-
one size fits
Yeah,
all.
yeah. And what I'm trying to say is that, look, like, there is, as elected members, we do knock on doors. Whether you have had a knock on your door, if you haven't spoken to the people here, that's irrelevant. Well, not irrelevant, sorry, that's different.
Yeah.
But also,
So she's claiming, remember, you can go to the community question time, or what it is, the big conversations, ask your questions, and she's saying your perspective is irrelevant. Your experience is irrelevant. There is no structured framework in place where elected representatives, councillors, have a programme of where they go and knock on doors to listen to people. It's not performance measured in any way whatsoever. It doesn't exist. Some councillors are better, as we all know, and some you never see until election time. And the lady specifically asked about question time, public question time. And AROOJ SHAH claimed it was being reviewed, and then launched onto a series of nonsense sideshow conversations. And you can see, can't you, Lynn, Harry and AROOJ are, trying to speak over each other.
a two-way relationship. If you ever need an elected member and they've not gotten back in touch with you or something, that's a bit different. But we are really accountable. Our details are published online. Our phone numbers are published online. We are there to be contacted. If you would like somebody to contact you and knock on your door and speak to you regularly, you're well entitled to expect that from your local elected representative.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the local policies are.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So we'll make sure that we've passed that information on and people do connect with you, because that's you should have that.
And as we come out of COVID, or we learn to live with COVID in a different way, it's our job to make sure that we are publicising information in the right places, so people are aware of any community meetings, including surgeries, but other general community meetings. And likewise on the council's website, you can send questions to me, other officers, to members about any issues that you've got. Sometimes it's an issue for a politician, sometimes it's a general question, it's for the council and our officers, and you should send it to me.
But you're right, we should be there to be held to account, we should be open and accessible, and we should be doing that, but we'll make every effort to make sure that if you feel that you don't get that, you get it going forward.
So can I just underline the question there, are you going to change the period of time on a council meeting from about 15 minutes?
So I can't decide that, it's a cross-party working group, it's not in my gift to decide that on my own. So that's me, the opposition leaders will have a working group, and then a decision's made, and then it goes to full council, gets ratified, and it's a constitutional thing. I couldn't just stand up yesterday or today to you and say, oh yeah, I will definitely do that, because then I would be not telling the truth.
But it's certainly...
Okay, so she would be not telling the truth, and she describes the process. Do you notice how she doesn't clarify her position or whether she would support something like that. Do you notice that? Throughout all of this, on the question of reforming public question time, so members of the public can ask questions, have more time to ask questions, have right of reply, and councillors aren't allowed to just give pre-scripted responses. She does not at any point clarify her position on that. Did you notice?
Here's one idea,
Yeah.
one option, and
Yeah.
it's great to hear.
Yeah.
So that strengthens it. So as the group leaders from all three political parties, four political parties consider it.
Yeah.
The fact that there's the public that wants it.
Yeah.
It's great.
But you know, I am committed. You raised that, so I am committed to exploring that, and I will provide an update to let you know how that goes on. But
Thank you.
I have to speak to the colleagues.
And I've
Can
got lots more.
I ask you a question just in relation to that?
Yeah.
This is me as an officer 2 months in looking at how the council works. My experience of it, because I think the council is very generous at having questions on the day. My experience is, and I don't think it's too much of an inconvenience, but I'm going to ask you, my officer recommendation would be, can you please submit your questions by 4 o'clock the day before? Because the whole purpose of question and answer is to try and have the best outcome on the evening and more information. So would you think that would be reasonable?
That's what we do now.
So Harry Catherall is asking a question for something that already exists. So he's not even took the time to understand the process himself. He's not even took the time to understand the process himself.
But you've only got 15 minutes to be answered. You know, not all of them get answered. They put
But the
on
ones
the
that
web.
don't get answered,
Yeah.
we do get a written reply. We don't ever not
On the web.
respond to anything.
Great.
Yeah.
But if we had longer time, perhaps people could turn up at the meetings and hear, you know, face to face, the reply to the questions.
Yeah, or rather than it be
But you
prescripted.
turn up and you're not sure whether your question's going to be asked.
But some of the questions, it's not about them being pre-scripted. It's about if you ask technical questions that require technical answers. Elected members are just members of the public. I don't claim to be an expert.
They're not.
And absolutely.
They're not technical questions. They're pre-scripted, so they avoid answering the questions. You can see it. They're pre-scripted, so they avoid answering the questions.
If I require information or an expertise or whatever, then I have to make sure, in order to make sure you get a fully informed and appropriate answer, that you get that. That's why you might think it's scripted, but it's in order to make sure you get the answer that you actually need.
Can I just add something else?
So there you go. Complete lie. And I'll evidence that if you want. We're just looking at public questions from the last 3 council meetings since he's been in charge. It's a complete lie.
You mentioned last night, you had the malicious blogger from Huddersfield answer 2 questions. He doesn't even live in this town. That to me is taking our time
So who do you mean
off
is
us.
a malicious blogger?
Neil, well,
Feigning ignorance as to who the malicious blogger is. Feigning ignorance.
he had 2 questions last night for public question time. He doesn't live here in this town.
But he's a journalist. So journalists, if they work in the
So now she knows he's a journalist, yeah?
So, look, you've asked me a question, I can only answer it, you know. So Neil Wilby is a journalist. He has what's it called? The professional cards that they have. National, what is it?
Press
NEJ, yeah. So he has that card. So if a journalist works in an area or I don't know, reports from an area or just whatever, then we are entitled, according to our constitution and our rules, to respond. Journalists have that, and he has that. Actually, we'd be getting ourselves in really, really hot water as a local authority if we did not respond.
Okay, lie. Blatant lie by Leader of Oldham Council, AROOJ SHAH. Blatant lie. So Charles, there you go. Harry doesn't understand his own council's policy around public questions. What normally happens with public questions is if a journalist gets in touch, they're referred to the communications team who will answer the questions for whoever the journalist is. That is the standard operating procedure for engaging with journalists. Journalists do not submit questions to public question time, because the questions the journalists are submitting to public question time from Wilby is to pander to AROOJ Shah and support her. That's what's taking place there. So for her to claim they'll get in hot water if they don't answer his questions, she's not being honest. She doesn't have to answer his questions through public question time. She can direct journalists to the communications team, and the communications team will respond appropriately. That's how it works. That's how it works.
That, but he could be responded to in writing.
Pardon?
He could be responded to in writing, and the residents in your town responded to verbally.
So
it just seemed there was 2 from him last night.
But then, for fairness, all questions get answered on a first come first served basis. So we couldn't then bend that rule and think, well, okay, he's a journalist, so we'll just put his questions over there.
Yeah, but how do we know that he? How do we know it's that way? Is there a list then of what questions you receive?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So if I put 15 questions in,
yeah,
say cut 15 times, I can block the whole lot.
Well, it's, I don't
No,
think,
you
I
could.
don't
You put the
think
first-
that's-
Yes, she could, because they've just said it's first come, first served as a process, and she's right. If you submitted 15 different questions, one after another, and they came in first come, first served, your questions would be the only ones asked at a council meeting. Because she just said they can't ignore his questions if you put them in, and now Dirty Harry is contradicting and saying no. Do you see? Do you see what happens when you tell lies and when you're making things up as you're going along?
You know, if you put the first question in and then carried it on
He
with...
got 2 questions.
Because he put them in order. So if you put 15 questions in, and
Yes.
they were the first 15 questions, and the time allocated would mean that you would get the first 15 answers.
Right,
then.
okay then.
So that would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. She's admitting it now. She's admitting it now.
Right.
Yeah.
We want this to be a positive
Yes.
experience for people.
absolutely.
Both ways, it goes
So
both
as Louisa
ways, doesn't it?
said,
And I'm
we've
glad,
got to
you know.
look at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
we look at it, and it's
Yeah.
great to get the feedback.
Yeah.
So moving forward, looking
Yeah.
to the future,
Yeah.
are you going to be doing these almost on a regular basis?
Yeah.
But will you two be going out to different areas?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they'll be coming back.
So we
Absolutely.
can
I don't intend to just do this now and never do
That's
it
what I
again.
was
I
saying,
want it to be
yeah.
a role. I want this open communication, and I just think there's so much disconnect. And I also, you know what I really want? I really want people to engage with democracy as well. So I think when people see us out in person, being held to account, I want people to engage with that. It's really, really important. All the decisions that get made, whether they get made locally or nationally, it means like politicians are making them. And we can only make the best decisions, or the ones that absolutely make sure that your lives improve, if people like me and you are actually engaged in the process. And that's the whole point. Yeah.
And the idea of, even what won't be very detailed notes, but just the headline action from tonight, that we said we share with you, that we want to go to every area, and I've done this a lot in my career as well, as an officer supporting these processes, and then when we come back next year and do every area again, that note that you will appear again. So, well, this is what we discussed last year. Hopefully the most important issues have been addressed, and then there'll be a new set of issues, but you can have that conversation.
Okay, interesting. He's actually on a temporary contract. He's not on a permanent contract. He was hired as an interim on a temporary contract.
I had another one about Neil Wilby, because you were saying in the chat meeting last night about inciting hatred online.
Yeah.
Neil Wilby is a malicious blogger and a proven liar, and has been accused of that. And he's actually inciting murder against people in the borough, and it's on Facebook. Now you're saying in your meeting that you're trying to stop that, but yet he is inciting it in his posts.
If he is inciting murder on a post, then you report that to the police.
Exactly.
No, I have done. I have done, but
And you can't hold me responsible for other people's actions. I can only lead by my own. And
Right.
if you think that's what he's doing, then I would urge you to contact the police.
Right. But what?
Okay. Yeah. Here's AROOJ SHAH, a couple of days ago, thanking Neil Wilby, fully aware that he's a malicious blogger, proven liar, and inciting hate crime. Because that's what happens when you publish people's names and put their photographs on and make false allegations about them. Here she is. Thank you, Neil.
You take forward now with Neil Wilby? Will you let him continue to ask questions at question time?
He's a journalist, so if he asks questions, I have to answer them.
Right, okay.
So question time is for people that live and work in the borough. Now again, we've very rarely run out of time. So, well,
We very rarely run out of time. Remember where all this started? Remember where all this started? The refusal by AROOJ SHAH, Sean Fielding and Abdul Jabbar, because they were the three leaders, to answer Debbie Barrett Cole's question on the grooming and gang rape of our children and Shabir Daddy Ahmed's employment with Oldham Council, and they walked out twice rather than... So they very rarely run out. Just barefaced lies, isn't it? It's just barefaced lies.
I'm going to be at 2 months, but 3 meetings, so I think we do quite well. But I do understand the point you make as well about turning up to ask your question. I think it's quite important to come up and ask the question rather than... Yeah, so...
But people are able to do that. Pre-COVID, that people who submitted questions could actually attend in person and ask them questions.
Yeah. It's
so
gone before COVID.
Yeah. So you will hopefully, when we ever get back to the point or where we can have public meetings and that nature again, you will get the opportunity to come in person and ask those questions. That's never been an issue. The only reason that stopped happening was because of COVID. Yeah.
I'm here just to represent a group that I managed to put together regarding the This for Everyone thing. So, as you'll know, there's like 7 or 8 green belts affected in Oldham. And these are green belts that have been formed under the spatial framework, also knowledgeable with the procedure, blah, blah, blah. So it came to my attention from some residents that they were trying to build on Broadbent Moss, which is will affect Durker, Shoulder, Moorside, and effectively water treadings. So the plan, I contacted my councillor, a councillor that I knew, and she virtually confirmed that it went through. 2 days later...
Sorry, can you just move your mask?
Yeah, 2 days later, I saw the ridiculous tiny weeny maps. There were less than 10 in an area of 12,000 residents. There were less than 10 posted in barely visible places of the plans that they had to build houses on this particular valley, 1,500. Well, obviously, I panicked and I didn't know what to do. So I found out these are the people with all they've been going for years in the spatial framework. I knew that this would affect a lot of people. So me with 2 colleagues, we got together and tried to inform as many people as we could about this. They were utterly unaware. Durker, Shoulder, Moorside. You can count on that many fingers the amount of people that were aware that this was going to happen. And we were given 8 weeks to drag through the extremely difficult documentation, the procedure. At least 30% of people are either illiterate or have not got access to internet. It's an absolute scandal. Why would you sell? I've spent 6 months analysing the wildlife on that valley, and it's absolutely incredible. There's at least 30 badger sets, there's a massive roost of really rare bats, there's endangered species all over, number 1. Number 2, it's full of mine shafts. Number 3, it's a massive floodplain. All of these, I've managed to do the consultation, I pulled together a page, say Durker's Greenbelt, which, you know, and Durker and Shoulder includes, and the people are absolutely disgusted this has been done and shoved in behind their backs. These people that were unaware, not the people that were aware and didn't tell us, which is going to majorly affect. It's absolutely shocking that a decision like that could have been made without, you know, you say you want more communication with people. What more could we have wanted? The only councillor who's let anybody know about this has been Angela Cosgrove in Durka, because she's previously talked to the wildlife on that green belt. It's utterly, utterly shocking. I mean, I've kept politics right out of it. One of the pages that kept politics right out of it, because I'm not, you know, I'm very disgruntled with politics at the moment. But it's just shocking the way it's been done behind people's backs with the veil of COVID. They haven't been consulted. I'm not just talking about the wildlife, I'm talking about the disruption, the rising pollution levels. Nightmare. The lack of facilities. For 1,500 more residents. Nightmare.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it, but I have made notes.
Sorry, can I just add?
So she's not familiar with one of the most major plans to build on green spaces in Oldham. She's not familiar with it. And nor is she familiar with the bogus consultation, which is basically what the woman's described. What that woman's described is a pattern across the town when it comes to building on green spaces. Experienced by people. And like she said, she's not political. She's just a woman from a neighbourhood. And you can see, can I just add, before AROOJ Shah's got a sentence out, Dirty Harry is trying to intervene yet again.
Using antique map references, Broadmead Moss. That's not an antique map, an old-minded map. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Another, you know, it's like another underhand technique for people not to realise what's been going on around them. I'm really shocked, actually. I'm really shocked.
So we can look at the newsletter, what you think you've produced, and that's important information.
No, it's just your information.
Yeah,
It's trying to get people informed about what's happening behind the backs.
But when we talk about spatial frameworks, big planning developments, they go through various stages of consultation.
Yeah, I know.
As you know, up until, but for colleagues in the room, up until actually the detail on site building them. Now, it's always a contentious issue, this. It really is a difficult issue. As an officer, no political side to me. As an officer, I've found myself in many of these meetings in the last 20 years talking to community groups about housing development. And, you know, if I try and share the facts and then you interpret it and have a conversation with whatever political party you want to.
So the development she makes reference to has been quietly nudged forward by the Labour Party for the last 5 years, 2016. AROOJ Shah is claiming she wasn't aware of it. The leader of Oldham Council is claiming she wasn't aware of it. And Harry's talking his nonsense about spatial frameworks, and because again, the council had the opportunity to opt out of Andy Burnham's spatial framework and design our own. Stockport did it, remember. The likes of AROOJ Shah's political career, Sean Fielding's political career before her. Their aspirations are to go high up, and to go high up, they need to do deals with Greater Manchester Combined Authority. So they're happy to sell out parts of our town in exchange for them progressing their careers. I think that is clear to anyone who observes what's taking place with these career politicians.
But the fact of the matter is, officers are charged, councils are expected to deliver a housing supply.
And he ignores, in the background of this, Oldham Council's lead planning officer was suspended for gross misconduct, allowed to resign, and Oldham Council to this date has not explained why they suspended him for gross misconduct.
The needs of the country and individual areas, now medium term, long term. And whether that's individual villages, about young people who can't afford to live here anymore, or about a whole borough where there's a significant increased requirement and demand for new types of housing. So we have to do a clear plan of our delivery of this housing requirement, and the numbers are negotiated with the government, and they set a number. And if you aren't delivering what's called the housing supply, this number, I keep it simple, if you aren't delivering that number, you have no protection against private developers who could come in, any green belt you like, with...
That's not true. That is just simply not true.
The owner of that land and do a deal and build. And we have got, as a council, our hands are tied behind our back because we haven't done
Liar.
the job of trying to ensure we've got
Liar.
the delivery of the number.
Liar.
So it's a constant battle.
Liar.
And-
Liar.
Social housing.
Yeah,
This is a massive requirement here. Is it affordable housing?
Yeah.
Now, who knows we can afford 250 grand for a house?
I know exactly.
Tell me.
And this is why it's important that we are able to bring about a full balanced offer that meets our expectations with government. Otherwise, we're held to ransom.
Can I just ask you what happened with all the brownfield land that was taken in Durka that was supposed to be for housing, social housing?
The government did indeed set a non-binding target.
In the midst of a climate catastrophe, we're supposed to be planting trees, supposed to be saving wildlife, not decimating. Because let me tell you, the people who have money and shit on their back by lawyers and planners and whatever, they touch this, that destroys that. This is a combined wildlife. I'm talking kestrels, buzzards. The list is endless of endangered species on there. So they might be all right, but they know about it for years. Well, no one had the decency to tell us. You know, people are growing in families that think they've got a chance, that think that their voice doesn't count. I'm speaking for them now.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgraced by
But
this.
we included as much brownfield land in our plans as we could.
No.
So we absolutely did do that.
No. Not at all true.
No. And
Not at all true.
it's like Harry said, it's not an easy thing to do, but we do have like strict requirements set on us from government that we do have to meet.
No,
So either we do it
not
in a
at all
way where
true.
We can limit and as much damage as we can, or you have private developers who don't have any conscience at all.
These
just
are
come
No,
out.
not at all true.
These are private developers that will build them.
Thank you.
But we still have a plan that they adhere to and work with us on.
We can't adhere to anything. Once one house...
You tell her, love. You tell her.
So the issue about the whole wildlife structure...
That's my
Yeah,
personally.
I
My
understand.
other colleagues,
Yeah.
pollution, lack of amenities, other things that are going to be very important for these 12,000 people. that are
He's a
really
liar,
there.
Nick. He's a liar.
And I'm sure not to your satisfaction, but there'll be a massive responsibility to look at all of those issues, impact on wildlife.
The issue that needs to be looked at is the difficulty of the consultation process, the maze of documentation that people were expected to read, digest, and comment on in 8 weeks. It's a disgrace. The way it's been done, it's absolute disgrace.
Well, if the consultation process is something that you think that's difficult to navigate around,
Me?
and
And I've got a
whoever,
degree, I mean,
all right, whoever,
no, I mean, I'm normal, but you know, I mean, if you're not familiar with the language is planning language.
But that's what I'm saying. If the consultation and that engagement, which is ultimately supposed to be about engagement, if that process
No engagement.
is not easy to navigate through,
Yeah.
then that's wrong, and that's
It's
not
wrong.
right. And then we should
Wrong
make
with you,
it
they're
as simple.
The people of Durka, Moyside, Shoulder, apart from that, people that joined along to the Green Belt of the Shore, absolutely clueless that this was happening.
Yeah.
Clueless. And we had to take our time, with pleasure if it did anything, to knock on door by door to at least 4,000 or 5,000 residents to inform them. They were so disgusted that they didn't know about this. It's like it was done under the rug.
That's one made.
Just on this thread about building,
Yeah.
that's the other thing that I'd like to kind of make a point of, and I kind of accept what you're saying about the constraints. But you know, when new housing's going up, we have got an issue that we haven't got, like fundamental stuff. Like I can hardly get appointments with my own doctor, for example. Who can find an NHS dentist? Impossible. Our schools are like brimming to absolute bursting at the seams.
Yeah.
You couldn't possibly now get a school of your choice because you just land where you throw kind of thing. You know, I don't know what the sewer network's like, but it must be bulging to absolute, you know, because all we're doing is we're building stuff, but just linking in to what we've already got. And it's, for me, I just don't think it's enough.
Mm.
You know, we haven't got enough infrastructure there to support all this stuff.
And it's a very good point you make, and actually does link with the previous lady's questions, because actually by producing our plan, not only should that plan deliver the government's number on housing supply, but it also goes in to identify as a cost and as a service requirement, impact on schools, impact on roads, impact on NHS, dentists, doctors, because especially if it's a valuable development, we should be negotiating for that developer to invest in schooling, to invest in the NHS, invest in. And we have succeeded in that. So I know that we have got a substantial...
He's claiming, so I forget what they call the Section 1 something. And when you build, you're meant to, you know, put some money towards the infrastructure costs. Consistently, never been claimed. Because there's backhanders and dodgy deals and all the rest of it. So he's just he's claiming they've done it. He knows. He's claiming. Harry Catherall, the new leader of Oldham Council, is claiming Oldham Council is securing money from developers to pay towards schools, to pay towards infrastructure. Section 106, thank you. I've not misheard that, have I? He's claiming they're doing that. Someone should submit a Freedom of Information request and ask for a detailed list of Section 106 funds received on a development by development basis for the last 5 years. These people are lying. They're just lying. You go to the trouble of going to meetings with the Chief Executive of the Council and the Leader of the Council, and they're lying to you. Yeah. They're lying to you. And remember, Sam Al-Hamdani was sat in that meeting. And the other guy, Kenyon, is it Mark Kenyon, was sat in that meeting. 2 councillors were sat in that meeting. And no, that was a point, wasn't it? That was a point. The consultation was a sham.
Sums, not to the council, but into education that contribute to either expanding a primary school that might be 2 forms of 3 forms, or building a brand new school, secondary, primary, whatever. So it is a key issue, and that's why if you're planning for 5, 10, 15 years, you can factor that in, and it can be a substantial sum. So where you see these larger houses that are worth a lot of money, in those same areas, the government would then tell us, and you should now also be getting and negotiating a big contribution to future education, future NHS requirements. And that responsibility is put on us as well. The government don't give us that money, we have to negotiate it. So we do, because we have to make sure that the children coming through have got access to, ideally, good quality, local education.
Yeah, but if we...
Okay, so the Section 106, Charles, that you say is online. I've gone on Oldham Council's webpage. Section 106, planning obligations. You can see it here. Oldham Council. That's not me, yeah. That's their logo. Report to Planning Committee 2010. It's 11 years old, whatever they've got there. Do you see? The last time they've updated is January 2010. 11 years old. These people take us for fools. These people think we're stupid. These people hold us in contempt.
Begin to decimate. This is the problem. This is the climate emergency. If we begin to decimate and disregard the wildlife, what future have the kids got? They've got no future. It's absolutely shocking. People just aren't realising. So let's build it. You're making people choose between, do we respect wildlife enough? That has been such a comfort over lockdown. People have, like me, have grabbed onto wildlife because there's been no hope. You get rid of that, what hope have you got? A few people sat in a room making decisions for other people? No. It's not the way to go. Choose between prosperity for a town or keep your wildlife.
It's a massive dilemma for everybody to wrestle with. It really is a challenge, isn't it? Because
so why not
every development,
why not refuse? Why
Every
can't you
development
refuse
you
to
do
decimate
though has
it?
got a compromise
The
between
council just
land.
refuse to do it. Are we supposed to be doing? I mean, this has been a COP 26, but as a council, just take the baton and say we refuse to decimate 8 green belts in our town.
Well, I know as an officer, but again, I keep saying that because it's important for me to be politically neutral.
Yeah.
I know that the council has indeed said
Yeah, we
to
pushed
me,
back as much as we
brownfield,
could. Yeah, brownfield
maximum
first.
brownfield development. As an officer,
It's not the same as brownfield first, is it? You see the play on words? Who determines its maximum? It's not true. What he's saying isn't true. What she's saying isn't true. Because the priority behind development, housing development in Oldham, isn't to build houses that our people need. It isn't to build in the places where it makes most sense to protect the green belt. No, it's to build houses where council tax revenue is maximised. He's not very good, is he? He's like a cheap car salesman. I'd say a second-hand car salesman because, you buy good second-hand cars. He's like a dodgy car salesman.
it'd be easy for me to say, do you know what? We can take community meetings on like this every day, but let's drive forward, let's build on Greenbelt, and that's where
Let's
it's
drive
substantially...
forward and build
that
on
would be wrong.
Greenbelt.
That would be wrong to do that.
Yeah, that's what
And I agree with you. It has to be a balance in life between all of these competing challenges. But what's also wrong is some of our, not young people anymore, some of our adults are struggling to find accommodation that's affordable, where they want to live, where
They're
they've
not
grown up.
affordable, no, are they?
You know?
The ones that they're building here, particularly, affordable housing is 250 grand. They're not affordable. What's the need is the social housing. That's what's the massive need here. And I'm sure...
But how do you know the £250,000?
Well, these are affordable.
Yeah, but how do you know that an affordable house is £250,000?
And the cap outside London is 250 grand.
Sorry?
The cap outside London is 250,000 pounds.
No, so I would, if I was looking for an affordable house, £250,000, would it be affordable?
Yeah, well, these are affordable houses. 70% of them are affordable houses.
But you're assuming that that's £250,000 is not an affordable home.
Well, clearly not. But that's what I'm saying. Affordable. What the government class is affordable.
Yeah.
And I know we're not going to satisfy that balance between, it's a real tough one.
The only thing I want to say is, wouldn't it be wonderful if some people could stand up to this government, or whoever's trying to impose these shocking things, and say, you know what? For our children, we are not willing to decimate the green belts.
But it's legislation.
They're hanging by a thread.
It's legislation.
It's a lie. The government aren't forcing you to build on the green belt, and it sure as hell isn't legislation. It sure as hell isn't legislation.
Yeah, they changed the legislation like I changed my underwear, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's changed the government, and that's the... Yeah,
Oh, there you go.
So
And did you see that? Did you hear that? The politically neutral Chief Executive of Oldham Council's recommendation to a member of the public is vote to change the government. Did you hear that? Harry Catherall, Chief Executive, non-political role, recommendation to a member of the public is vote to change the government.
we have to be really realistic, and we have to be really honest in these conversations. The targets... No, I'm not saying you're not honest, I said we have to be. So the target is set by government. We have to adhere to that. And if you think that having these kind of conversations with us is complicated, you're not listening to. Imagine somebody just coming in and doing it anyway.
And no one can just come in and do it anyway. It isn't the option, go with Andy Burnham, or people can do what they want. Stockport took responsibility for their own town. Why can't we take responsibility for our own town? The Chief Executive of Oldham Council, in his non-political role, in response to this, very legitimate concern raised by a member of the public. In the first instance, about a sham public consultation process, which many of us are familiar with when it comes to Oldham Council. Took it to a place where his recommendation was to vote to change the government. He should be sacked for that. He really should be sacked for that.
So, anybody else?
Yeah, can I just ask what the current rent is for the market traders where they are, and what it's going to be when they're moved into the spindles? And also, I mean, I expect you to come back to me, but you can do, what financial support is there going to be for them to relocate? And will there be a rent-free period or help with removal costs? Because that's all going to come into their move.
So they will definitely get support. We engage with them regularly. So we're going to try to make it as seamlessly as possible. And I think the one benefit that we do have with now being owners of spindles is to make sure that we have a rent of some sort that means that they can have a capacity of a certain amount of time to make sure that they can build their business, because we understand what that transition can mean. And so we're regularly in contact with them, and we'll make sure that.
So is she, I couldn't quite work out from her answer, but is she confirming that the council have a transition scheme in place or developed which will include financial assistance? Because that's what she's suggesting.
They need, we can do to the best of our ability.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else in your little black book?
Yeah, I've got loads. If nobody, I don't want to take everybody's time up. I've just written them. Sorry.
These people have just turned the sound down. These people are very brave, by the way, to go and ask these questions. Ordinary townsfolk to go and ask these questions. They're very brave.
Firework or bonfire night, we're talking at any time.
Oh, so this is about fireworks.
And beyond.
Yeah. It's so.
Remember, the council in Chadderton, the council sold one of our public assets to become a wedding venue that is responsible for the fireworks. So the council are actively involved in this. They sold it to one of their dodgy mates at discount rate, and he's now setting off, or his business is now involved in setting off fireworks from the street.
It could be now chucking down so you can hardly stand up in the rain. But I tell you what, you'll see a firework.
Another lie then, Charles.
It's like,
another lie.
Sometimes I think I'm playing a flipping war zone, you know, it's ridiculous. And then, of course, so I engaged in an email conversation with council. Hallelujah. Anyway, the upshot of it was that I had to go out at night, find the culprits and take the names and addresses, then pass them to the council so they could go and speak to them. So I just replied with, I'll see you in A&E.
Yeah. It's not the council actually, it's police who have to report fireworks because they are distressing, and I absolutely despise them. They're dangerous, but they impact people who live on.
It is the council. The council have a duty, and the council can go out and do something. It's the environmental whatever services. It's not the police. It's the council. She's just making things up as she goes along.
If they distress pets, it's a massive, massive issue, and I've complained to the council myself to find out that it's the police who addresses it.
So it's the police who addresses it? No. The council have licensing and all the rest of it.
It is a really horrible issue, isn't it? We discussed this often.
So if it's a really horrible issue, why did your council sell buildings to these Asian businessmen who are opening wedding venues where these fireworks are? I mean, that's the correlation, isn't it? It's the weddings. It's the Asian weddings. It's the men.
In our political groups as well, because we have residents complaining about it all the time.
Yeah, it's a licensing issue. Yeah, it's a licensing issue. It's environmental. Thank you. Yeah. See?
Yeah, no. That want you to tell me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Exactly. You know, so it is a massive issue, but you have to report it to the police, and then they go out when they've got evidence and find out.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's frustrating. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you for coming.
I've got a couple. I've got an okay one, and then I've got a bit of a contentious one. So you touched on it before, Harry, about the council's debt, how much debt we're into, and I believe we're paying £40 million in interest payments per month for its current debt. What I'm interested in is how long will it be before this is paid off? And as you, the leader of the council, are my children, grandchildren, and maybe even great-grandchildren going to be paying this in the future?
So let me just reassure you, and we're not paying £40 million a month. We're not paying that figure. But people do see the council's
I think it's from your own accounts online.
No, we're not paying that.
Okay, no. Actually, it's 38 million. I think it's not a month; it's a year. Yeah, but they knew what the actual figure was, but they just wanted to not correct the lady and say it wasn't £40 million a month; it's £40 million a year, or close to. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to make it look like these figures are false. But this bit.
Interest every month. We're not paying £40 million interest every month. But we have, on what appears to be, on the balance sheet, so I've looked at this, because a few people have mentioned this to me actually, I've only been here 2 months. So I'm thinking, what's this issue? There's clearly an issue buzzing around that Oldham has got large debt compared to other local authorities. I've not had a chance to discuss this with them yet, but so I've looked into it. So what's this issue? And yeah, on the balance sheet, it looks like we've got a substantial debt. The actual council debt is only a quarter of what's on the balance sheet, and that is because the accounting treatment for schools that are PFI schools means the debt goes on the council's balance sheet. The government gives PFI credits, it's called, i.e. to repay the debt. So it's an in and out. It's no impact on the council at all. The council's real debt, that it takes out long-term loans and balances it, it's just over 100 million, and that is to surface any brand new investments that it's repaid over up to 25 years, and it gets recycled. So we're actually in a very healthy position in terms of debt, even though it doesn't look like it.
Okay. It's just not true. The council's own auditors, in the budget earlier on this year, the council's own auditors flagged the risk of bankruptcy twice in the official documentation. We're not in a healthy position at all. And his in and out thing is like a dodgy car salesman. He's like a dodgy car salesman. He can't be trusted. He just can't be trusted. I've not put those questions in front of him. I've not told him to answer the way he has. He's telling people to change the way they vote or to vote the government out, which isn't his job. And he's repeatedly told, if not lies, deception after deception, half-truths throughout. He's just not being honest. No, Charles. He's not being honest. But do you notice again how he took over? How he took over? It wasn't her.
Who's creating all the rumours, I'll be delighted to get something that's a bit more user-friendly than I've just said, but out to say, look, let's myth bust this.
Well, if you've been asked a number of times, I think that's an urgent thing that you need to do.
No, so I will do. I will do. It's only in these last
yeah,
couple
but
of weeks.
I do accept that point. You know, it is really daunting when you look at these figures and you think, what the hell are they? How long,
well, especially when you look at the maintenance bill that you've got and you're 50% behind, but yet you're concentrating on spending 15 million or thereabouts for spindles, when you've got schools that haven't been maintained. And lots of other buildings.
And we want to be able to share information in this way, but on a broader footing, because actually schools, the vast majority of schools are independent, have independent funding from government in terms of maintenance of buildings. Academies, now
the council's own paperwork showed they were responsible and they had money set aside for fixing schools and fixing community centres and buildings, and they chose not to and diverted the funds elsewhere, spindles, essentially. So the lady is right in her question. The council's own paperwork confirmed that. Minutes of their own meetings confirmed that. And he's trying to sidestep the issue. And again, you can see he's the one who's answering the question.
So we'll always step in because they're our children. That's where we look. But
No, I understand that. I mean, your own buildings and schools
when
and
there are
things.
issues, we're the first there. You know, if an academy is being flooded, we're the first there to try and help out.
No.
But it is the it's the PFI debt that is appearing that's being confused as council debt. It's just an in and an out.
Okay.
That's not true.
Anybody else? Or do you want me to do the contentious one?
I've got a
Go on, you do
small
it.
one.
Go on.
You know how you like the Civic Centre up AROOJ on certain days for George Floyd's anniversary? Why can't they light it up for the two policemen what killed? One who lived up here, was born and lived in Diggle. Who decides who we lighting it up for?
Yeah.
I know it's only a small thing.
It's not a small thing.
But it's still a very raw thing up in these villages, you know, for the two girls. George Floyd and Rice Krispies don't mean anything to me. Those two girls mean a lot to me. Their memory means a lot.
So
Do they not deserve to be, you know, remembered once a year?
There are lots of people, I mean, absolutely. There are lots of people who sadly have been murdered, who've been killed, who've had horrible experiences.
Yeah.
And we need to commemorate in a variety of ways. I think requests can come in, and ultimately, you know, the three group leaders will meet regularly and say what is appropriate, what is an appropriate and sensitive way to respond to these requests. So by all means, you send your request in to me, and that's how it will be considered.
Right, to do, you know, who decides who likes. They lit it up for Rice Krispie Day.
No, it isn't.
What was it? What was the Rice Krispie? What's the Rice Krispie Day then? I don't know. I don't know what they were. It was something to do with Rice Krispies. It got lit up for some breakfast cereal. But these two girls.
Okay, it didn't get lit up for Rice Krispies. What had happened was, on the anniversary, where Greater Manchester Police and other police authorities were posting in memory of Fiona Bruce and Nicola Hughes, the two police officers. Oldham Council decided to put a Rice Krispie post up about Rice Krispie Day instead. And I think what the lady is saying, you're treating us with contempt. You had George Floyd, you lit it up for George Floyd, but you did nothing to remember our own fallen. And it cannot be left unsaid that the connection also here is AROOJ Shah's direct connection to what took place. Her childhood friend, family friend, and you'll see this in a minute, hear it in a minute, was the getaway driver of the guy who killed these police officers. But they twist it. They twist it. These are brave people asking questions, and they might get a little bit confused. And if they get a little bit confused, our job when I worked in public service was to clarify and support them so we understood the question better and got it right, not used it as a stick to then attack them back. But hear the rest of it.
Lit up the Civic Tower for a cereal.
I'd have to look back in the newspapers to find it.
So you actually think and believe that we lit up
Well,
the Civic
that's
Tower
what it came up
for
as.
cereal,
And
for a
also
cereal
George Floyd. What does George Floyd mean
George
to
Floyd.
Oldham besides being, you know, that nice
It was a national outcry. The whole country.
Yeah.
The whole country.
So was these two young policewomen who were murdered.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I mean, we've got.
But I don't think there's comparison in people's.
There's not a comparison between George Floyd. No, she's right. Am I disrespectful? Am I wrong in saying I couldn't care about George Floyd? In the context of how I care about 2 local police officers, one of which was, I could walk to where she lived from where I am. Am I wrong in saying that? There's no comparison, not in the way she means it. AROOJ SHAH means it in the way there's no comparison because George Floyd was more significant. I don't think it was. And it's such a shame, Gary, that they laughed at her. She got it confused, but it's clear what she meant. And they know what she meant. The council posted about Rice Krispie Day instead of posting a tribute. That's what she meant. And she's right. And she's right about George Floyd as well. She's not saying don't light up for George Floyd. She's saying if you pay tribute to George Floyd, then surely you've got to pay tribute to one of our own. That's what she's saying. But they twist it. They twist it into a Black Lives Matter racist, so the undercurrent comes straight through.
Tragic.
Yeah.
I think that absolutely, if you feel, I don't think we've ever had the request, but I think if you submit one, that's fine.
But certainly will.
The George Floyd one was it wasn't even just a national movement. It was like an international one. Everybody across everywhere was doing it. I don't see, and it wasn't George Floyd. It was about the Black Lives Matter.
Well, but it was on his anniversary.
But it was a Black Lives Matter movement, okay?
So does that make it okay? Because it was a Black Lives Matter thing? I think it makes it worse. As a committed anti-racist, I look at the Black Lives Matter campaign, which is tied in with this rip statues down nonsense. And it'll be remembered for doing more damage to race equality than anything positive. What's positive come out of Black Lives Matter for race equality in our country? It's divided us even more. It's just another stick to beat working class white people with who have no power to be racist anyway. And the institutional racism that my ethnic minorities do suffer, they're not responsible for it. Any more people like me are responsible for the injustices suffered by working class white people. Yeah, that's exactly what she said, isn't it? That's what they've said, isn't it? I've not made that up, have I? I've not interpreted that wrong, have I, John?
No, we hurt and we feel that pain for anybody who dies or passes away tragically.
I can tell you firsthand. I can tell you firsthand that. You know what I was really proud of? Children in our schools, from all backgrounds, demanded that the country responds to this horrific incident. And they're powerful and through young voices, so amazing. From young voices, whatever their background, ethnicity, colour, demanded that their voices heard as part of the worldwide voice to stamp out absolute disgraceful prejudice and racism. That was amazing. That gives us hope for the future, doesn't it?
It does.
Young people are demanding. All of us grown up to
attended
respond.
these girls' funeral at the cathedral in Manchester. Hundreds of police on horses. It was a massive thing, and now it's ignored. At a time where one of them was born.
It's not ignored.
It is to me. It's raw. It's so raw.
But it's raw for a lot of people, though, Denise. But it's not ignored at all. There's something done annually for it.
Can we see?
So, AROOJ SHAH is claiming there's something done annually in reference to paying tribute to a police officer from our county being killed. I have no idea what the council does annually. I have no idea whatsoever. If anyone does, please tell me. And I'll post about it next week, and I'll go into extensive detail, and I'll apologise.
I just up on see it in memory.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
At the time,
Yeah,
of course
thank
we
you.
can.
Yeah.
Going on from that a little bit now, regarding the vigilante group that's currently in South Chadderton, why do you refuse not to condemn these street patrols? Is that because he's a long-standing friend of yours, and obviously the convicted killer of the driver of convicted killer Dale Cregan? And I know it's a bit contentious. And will you clarify your relationship with him, please?
Let's get a bit personal.
Well,
It's getting a bit personal. What's it got to do with you, Harry? What's it got to do with you?
It is. No, because, no. I've said to you it was going to be contentious.
Sorry, what's your name?
And it's about South Chadderton. It's about that area. Lynn Kovacs.
Yeah, I just like to know where you...
So she wants to know her name, and she wants to know where she comes from.
Information from me.
What? There's no there's no vigilante street controls.
You asked me a number of questions.
Yeah.
So will you now just wait patiently
Right,
while
go
I
on.
answer those questions?
Okay.
So I would be really intrigued after I answer you where you get your information from, because firstly, I'm not aware of any vigilante group.
She's not aware of any vigilante group. She was asked the question repeatedly in a council meeting. 3 times she refused to condemn them. This is not my opinion, it's a matter of public record. She was asked 3 times in 3 different ways, and each time she refused to condemn them. But she's claiming she's never heard of the term vigilante to describe this. It's not a term she recognises.
Any vigilante group. If you want to refer to a group as that, that's fine. Secondly, how can you say I've refused street patrols, refused to condemn street patrols, where I've done it on 3-4 occasions, including a live public streaming on full council?
Lie. 100% lie. On a live public streaming at Oldham Council, when she was asked multiple times, she refused to condemn them. It's a matter of public record. In fact, she started off by saying, we would never seek to condemn. And the vigilante street patrols made global news. They're described globally as vigilante street patrols, because that's what happens when convicted mobsters take to the street to dish out street justice.
To miss that one, so I apologise for that. I apologise for that.
No. Let me finish before you apologise. What I do expect is that people, before they start circulating and speculating and perpetrating all these rumours that aren't true.
So what rumour isn't true? Are there not vigilante street patrols? If they're not vigilante street patrols, what are they? It's reported across the world. Rumours that are not true. And why is she getting so heated? Why is she getting so heated?
At least do your research first. So if you could research that I refuse to condemn them, you should have also researched to see where the evidence behind that was.
The evidence behind her refusal to condemn vigilante street patrols is in the responses she made at a full council meeting when she was asked 3 times to condemn them. It's a matter of public record.
Where the evidence behind what was?
saying that I refuse to condemn them. I stood up in public council,
Right.
there's public statements out there, journalists.
Where are her public statements condemning vigilante street patrols? Where is a public condemnation of Irish IMY's vigilante street patrol?
Why is it still going ahead?
I do not agree with them, but actually, I have no authority over what people do.
Of course, you have authority over what people do. You're the leader of the council. But if you're saying you have no authority over what people do in their personal lives, that's fine. But you can have a position. The leader of the council can have a position. You speak out all the time, AROOJ SHAH, about standing up to racism, Islamophobia, misogyny. All the time, the leader of Oldham Council, while she cannot tell people what to do, she's able to state her position in her capacity as leader of the council on what our civic leaders expect. And all we wanted was for her to say, I categorically condemn plans by a convicted heroin dealer to launch a vigilante street patrol. In a society such as ours, the rule of law is paramount, and it is the responsibility of the police. The council object to it, the council will not support it, and the council urge the police to intervene and arrest those who seek to dish out street justice. Why didn't she say that? I think she'd have got votes from loads of you if she said that. This is her barefaced lies moment in the same way Sean Fielding's was.
I can't go out physically stopping people. Them street patrols are working with the police, as is Failsworth Street Patrol, as are others.
No, they've been.
No, so see, look, you're willing to believe, you were just going to say they've been stopped, but they haven't.
No, I haven't.
Failsworth Street Patrol have been publicly condemned by Greater Manchester Police. Again, it's a matter of public record. Greater Manchester Police have not publicly condemned Irish IMY's vigilante street patrol. Again, it's a matter of public record.
That. Don't take the words out of my mouth.
What were you going to say?
Doesn't matter, I'll listen to Harry.
So I think
You asked me the question,
so
that was, so you can't ask Harry questions about me.
Okay.
So, you've asked about the street patrols and whether I've condemned them, why I refuse to condemn, which is categorically untrue.
No, it's not, it's categorically true.
Your other question was about what? The convicted killer? I don't know the convicted killer of...
no, the driver, I said. The getaway driver.
The getaway driver for what, specifically?
Of DALE CREGAN.
For what?
What do you mean for what?
It has nothing to do with the killing, the tragic killing of the police officers.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Can you hear the venom in her voice? Can you hear the animosity in her voice? This is your council leader. Of what? Of who? And she claims Irish IMY had nothing to do with the tragic killing. This was not a tragic killing. This was a premeditated assassination. Why can't she even use the words murder? There's nothing tragic about what took place. It was atrocious. It's not a tragedy. This isn't someone walking to school and they were run over by a bus. And as for him having nothing to do with it, he was in the dock with Dale Cregan. He drove him to a safe house after he'd already murdered one lot, and that's from where he planned what he did next. For the leader of Oldham Council to claim he had nothing to do with it is disgraceful. I'm too, you can see, I'm quiet because I'm on the verge of being speechless. This is the leader of your town. People of Oldham, this is the leader of your town, claiming, one, it was a tragedy rather than a vicious, premeditated assassination. And two, claiming he had nothing to do with it. This lad's got the quote from the MEN at the time, which goes into extensive details. It's all a matter of public record. There you go. After slaughtering David Short, Cregan called Ali to transport him out of Manchester. Within minutes, Ali turned up in a leased Volkswagen Golf. Ali had never taken a driving test. He ferried Cregan and two others to Leeds, enabling the murderer to evade a huge manhunt and later lure two police officers to their deaths. Reported from the court. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the leader of your town, defending a mobster, rewriting history. Why?
Second, then you asked me why I'm still friends with him. Well, to be fair, he's a family friend and has been for a long time.
So he's now a family friend and has been for a long time. So he's now not a childhood friend. He's a family friend and has been for a long time. So before, when you made reference to as being a childhood friend, it could mean I have childhood friends who are heroin dealers, for instance. I knew them as children. I don't know them now. But now she's confirming that the relationship is ongoing rather than some point in the past.
Ever hidden that. I don't veil that.
She has never ever hidden that until I released the photographs. Very few people in Oldham knew of her connection to not just this mobster, but multiple other mobsters. She has never ever hidden that, she claims. Well then, who knew? Do you think she'd have got elected in Chadderton South? If on a leaflet it said, "Hi, my name is AROOJ SHAH. I'm a childhood friend of Dale Cregan's getaway driver." Idea for a leaflet though, isn't it?
Open and honest about that. There's a full council speech.
Open and honest about that. The full council speech she makes reference to only came about after I released the photographs. It only came about after I released the photographs. It's all documented. Only came about after I released the photographs and I wrote a story.
December 2019, where I addressed that, and I would like to.
And the council meeting she makes reference to, mysteriously, that recording has disappeared off YouTube. It's been hidden. It's been taken off by Oldham Council. Why is that? Why is that?
That if anybody in their life knew somebody who'd made wrong choices, I would like to think that people would not turn their backs on them. And
So if anybody in their life made wrong choices, I would like to think people would not turn their backs on them. Spent most of his adult life in prison. Convicted heroin dealer, convicted cocaine dealer, violent criminal. I think one of his early prison stints was getting a plank of wood or something and beating up an old man with it. His most recent conviction was December last year. Wrong choices. Interesting choice of word, isn't it? Wrong choices.
and help them rehabilitate. When somebody rehabilitates, it doesn't just benefit me and my family because they're family friends. It actually benefits society as a whole.
So Irish IMY is now benefiting society as a whole. You've heard that from the leader of Oldham Council. He's benefiting society as a whole.
The other thing about that is the fact that you focus on the fact that he's just my friend. He's not. His mum and my mum are friends. We're family friends. We all know people, but you don't turn your backs on people because somebody made a wrong choice. But them choices don't reflect who I am either.
Them choices do reflect who you are. It shows where your loyalties are. Yeah.
Any of my decisions, any of the choices that I make, I'm held accountable publicly. You hold me on what my actions are and what my conduct is. I can't complain or apologise or be responsible for what somebody else has done in their life.
Okay.
Okay. So she can't be responsible for what someone else has done in their lives. But you don't endorse them. You don't support them. You don't hang out in a mocktail bar with them and their mates. You don't go to an election with a Labour Party rosette with a guy who rammed a broomstick up the backside of some young man, and when the police turned up they found the signs of torture were so horrific, blood was splattered all over the walls. But it's okay, I'll put my red Labour Party rosette on and rock up to an election and pose next to him. Together. I think the obvious question is, what is her existing relationship, isn't it? I think there's an obvious question here. No, I'm not going to ask her. I don't care. What I do care about is that the people of Chadderton South, it seems as though she's never hidden it and she's always been upfront about it. I want to make sure that the people of Chadderton South are aware of it, and so they can vote her out. It's just astonishing, isn't it, Gary? It's just absolutely astonishing. Tracy is a convicted heroin dealer. Multiple times convicted drug dealer.
Is a local meeting about issues in this local area, and we've come and we'll take any issue.
Yeah.
That's not actually how the meeting was advertised. It was come and ask whatever you want. So once again, the Chief Executive of the Council is lying, is getting aggressive with a member of the public, and he's basically saying, how dare you ask that question?
Executive 2 months. I'm aware of that before I joined the organisation, I'd listened to the speech online, I'd read the stories in the press. I was satisfied and clear.
Right.
I think tonight is not the right place, but you've had your conversation and she's
And I
responded.
think finally, Harry, I think what's really important to say is that, you know, when you are in a public role and you do put, when I stood there in December 2019, I put my truth out there, and you ask for politicians to be open and
She puts her truth out there and you ask for politicians to be open and honest. The woman has been caught red-handed lying on a declaration of interests. She declared it late, backdated her declaration, and backdated her resignation before the declaration. So what means, why did you declare it in the first place? She can't sue me. She can't have me arrested. She can't do any of those things to do with Gelato's Ice Lounge, which is now a mocktail bar that Irish IMY is promoting. I ain't got a clue who owns that or where the money comes from. You can't do anything to me because all of this is a matter of public record. You can't say my truths. There's only one truth. People of Oldham, AROOJ SHAH is the leader of Oldham Council. Harry Catherall is Oldham Council's Chief Executive. I'll play the rest of it actually, so you might as well hear the rest of it. So there's only a minute left, but I'll just play it. So then I've not kept anything from you.
honest and transparent, and I did that. Now, as an individual, you have a choice. You either like them for that truth or you hate them for that truth, and you're entitled to do either. That's fine. You're entitled to do either. But you can't say that I'm not open, honest, and transparent, and you can't say that you don't know what I stand for or what I fight for, because it's out there. So the choice of whether you
So
agree
she
with
fights
that or
for
not
heroin
is
dealers?
yours. But the one thing you can't, or nobody can say to me, is that I'm not open, honest, and transparent.
Will be
People know what
open,
I stand
honest,
for,
and
people know what I
transparent
fight
about
for.
Gelato's Ice
I will
Lounge.
always fight for the underdog. I will always do it. It's what got involved me in politics, and that could be anyone across any part of society, of any colour, of any ethnicity. That's what I stand for.
Well, this is the first time I've actually seen you
But
face to face.
I wish you would have
And
taken the trouble.
I have taken the trouble, and I've looked at a lot of different things.
To have, research further. But I am so glad we've had this opportunity.
Me
now
too.
You have a choice. I can only be open and honest with you. I'm sorry if you don't like what you hear, but I'm sure you would value that more than me sitting here and telling you
Absolutely.
what you want to hear.
Absolutely.
Great
Yeah.
stuff. Great stuff.
Well,
Okay.
you have all my respect for that reply.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Very,
That's
I think
very
that
kind.
was brilliantly answered. Well done.
Yeah, because you can't say.
I think that's very respectful, and I
Yeah.
think you have absolutely proven out that you are open and
Yeah,
transparent.
because the thing is, people always say we want politicians that are like us. So I live in.
So you can see that was the first attempt to get a clap out of her. So it was all staged, and the last bit was all staged, but you can see.
That's an area that high crime still is.
You're responsible for the fireworks, aren't you?
Yeah.
So the area of high crime, she lives in GLODWICK, she claims, an area of high crime. Well, then there's an obvious question there, isn't there, about a certain car and whether it was locked or not.
Firebomb.
An area, on a serious note, that's really deprived, lots of issues. And you know what? My background and my experiences, my upbringing has made me the politician that I am today. So you either want politicians that are like us or you don't, because I'm telling you, nobody out there is perfect. Nobody life's perfect. And unfortunately, I'll tell you what my experience is. So people think that life starts here and it gets better and better and better and better. Unfortunately, in reality, it doesn't. Life starts here, it might get a little bit better, and then if you have a chaotic lifestyle, it might take you 10 steps back, then you try again. But then something else happens and it takes you back. So I can't turn my back on them people, because I know how difficult it is. I don't agree with it.
She can't turn her back on those people. She can't turn her back on those people. She can't turn her back on the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer. She can't turn her back on a guy who kidnapped, tortured and sexually abused a young man and recorded it. She can't turn her back on a money launderer. Yeah, they're trying desperately, aren't they?
Me, but I can't turn my back on that people. And in fact, based on my experience, what I am doing is launching next week a new programme called the Fresh Start, which is about 18 to 30 years old. I want to expand it further, but local businesses will get in touch with the council who are willing to give people who have been in the criminal justice system or want to rehabilitate a job, but a paid job.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what chance people find.
So, in a town with chronic underemployment, she's created a scheme for her mobster mates promoted by the council to get into employment. Where has that come from? Where has that come from? I wasn't there, so I don't know, Gary, Nick, either. But it's interesting, isn't it? From where I'm studying, it appears that the business partners, Tracy. Her family is, or she is. It appears that there's business partners with these mobsters. That entire thing about gelatos, mocktails doesn't sound right, does it? It doesn't stack up right.
Opportunities. Some people are just stupid and horrible and do bad things.
Yeah.
But there are some people that don't get the opportunities that the rest of us are fortunate to get.
Yeah.
I can't apologise for being that person.
What's the course?
Fresh start. But I can't.
A fresh start. Who's dreamt up Fresh Start? Where is it funded from? Which council officers are tasked to it?
For being that person. But I'll tell you what's really upsetting is that when you put your truth out there, people choose not to believe it or use it as a stick to bash you with.
When you put your truth out there. When you put your truth out there.
And then forget the impact that that has on your loved ones, on your family, on your friends.
I agree.
I chose to be in politics. But
you're
every
brave.
single member of my family is impacted about all the lies and the hate that's put out there.
Well, as that's launched next week, and there's been a great response. You know, the
Yeah.
businesses who are saying, you know, we'll give such and such a person a fresh start, second chance, and that's it. That's what the rehabilitation system is all about.
I think a lot of society do actually miss the premise of UK law, don't they? Which is
and rehabilitation.
you're not guilty unless you're proven, and then you're out by your peers, and then once you've done it, that's it.
And
It's
anybody
finished,
would think,
you know?
in certain parts of or certain forums of certain minorities, that the law of rehabilitation is something that I've established. It's not. It's the law of the land.
That's right.
You know.
We've got time for one more question. So we'll do that.
No, you're not limited as ever.
We got
But no, you don't.
We got any more?
You don't have to take him out. Like, you need to be held to account, and you've done that. You're entitled to do it. I have no issue with answering them questions.
Well, my last question then.
No,
I'm going to be...
One and then two more.
Go on, sweetheart. No, go on, lovey.
Yeah. No, this.
Well, first of all, can I just say on behalf of all of us, thank you for coming out, because I think the first step to sort of rebuilding sort of trust maybe between residents and the council is what you're doing. It's coming out, being open and honest, and saying there's no question too much. So it's a thank you from me on behalf of my mum who lives in Leeds and family and stuff like that. But on top of that, my question kind of is, lots of stuff back and forth. You know, I've seen lots of exciting stuff in the press that's moving forward. But could you just share with us, Harry, something that really excites you that's going to happen? You know, is it the Spindles development? Is it just something positive? You know, there's that really that I'm sure there's loads of stuff you've got.
It's absolutely loads.
Yeah, but you know, one or two things that makes you smile when you walk into work. You know, that might make us smile at all.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what didn't make me smile this morning walking to work, because I'm 2 months in, so I'm still meeting people. So like 6:45 this morning, I went into Alexandra Park and I met the workers before they went out doing the street cleaning, alright? And I'm thinking, do you know what, they've got a tougher job than mine, because in all weathers, snow and rain, met them all at Alex Park, street cleaners, park workers,
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
in there.
Clearly a plant. Clearly a plant.
Because you know what, they've got a right banter, they talk straight, alright? And they were saying what they wanted to do, and they wanted to do a bloody good job. Because
So that last question was a plant. It was a plant.
Yesterday morning,
It was a
met
plant.
refuse collection drivers, alright, up at the depot. All 6:30 at 1, unfortunately. Still got there before they all drove out. And they gave me a buzz as well. Because what they were about is going out and 99% of the time doing a good job for every one of us in this room. That's what they're about. So I love not shiny new buildings like most people, but I love much, much more knowing that people are doing their best to deliver a good service for every single resident of the borough. That's what I've always been like, and that's what I will be like. And you know, yes, I'm working on some fantastic plans, exciting plans that are going to happen. You know, this calendar year around spindles around the whole town centre. Yeah, multi-million pound investment. What I'm more excited about in all of that is thinking that Oldham people are going to get jobs, decent jobs. Yeah, that is the exciting bit of it. That is it. That's where we break into this cycle of challenge and disadvantage. People need decent wages, decent jobs, in their houses, and have decent quality of life. You know, that is what it's all about. That's what I want that for my family, and I'm sure that's what you want for yours. All right? Okay. And we will be back. Okay? As we said. All right? So you've been all this work out. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you very much.
So that was the applause. Okay? So that was the applause. You've heard all of it. Okay? You've heard all of it. I think I'll finish with, yeah, exactly. Okay, so I will finish with, in fact, I might as well share it with you. Clearly, I've upset the Failsworth Independents. I'll put up their messages so you can see it yourself, and you can decide yourself what I actually said and where any of this has any merit. And of course, I'm consistent. If I've offended you, I apologise. I sincerely apologise. My intention isn't to offend people. My intention is to do better for the town. It's as simple as that. I'll bring it up. You have a look at it. And then I will say my good evenings. Evening seems I can't respond to your comments directly despite subscribing. Thick as pig shit, obviously, Raja. You can see what the thick as pig shit comment was, and it wasn't to Mark. You are so wrong, Raja. How sad. It's easy for you to sit in your ivory tower and discredit good people. I wasn't discrediting him in my opinion, but you carry on. You have not had a conversation with us on the whys and the wherefores, but you presume to know our motives. So there are motives. Cozying up with Labour is never, ever going to be on our agendas. It's a matter of public record in your own press statement of working in partnership. Funny enough, we took advice from your friend, ironic. Didn't take advice from me, but it doesn't matter. All councillors have to sit through numerous training courses week on week. Please don't apologise, Raja. You've done a good job on us tonight. We took advice from your friend Raja. Yes, but I carried on, Raja. No, pal, we already had our motion. What motion? You're talking down to people, so disappointed in you. For your information, I get £661 a month. I don't really care how much you earn. I wouldn't give you in the £100 or £10,000 mark. I want better from all of my politicians, I think is my point. That is absolutely outrageous. No, we did not. Why are you casting aspersions on us? No deal was ever done with AROOJ SHAH. Again, it's a matter of public record. The deal was done with AROOJ SHAH, where you talked about working in partnership. Brian Hoban has repeatedly mentioned it in a council meeting himself. If you only knew what has been going on, you would eat your words, mate. Tell the people of Oldham that. I'm happy to eat my words. Thick as pig shit, you said. You see, keep going back to thick as pig shit, thick as pig shit. You know, if you want to be a victim, you go ahead, you're better than this. I am absolutely disappointed with you. I'm disappointed. I'm completely disappointed. that I had to raise why the district committees have come about the way they are and they've carved them up. Yeah. You can see how difficult this task is. I don't envy anyone. And I don't envy anyone who wants to be a councillor, because I think they're set up to fail in this town. That recording was, wow, we're at midnight. That recording was something else, wasn't it? You can see why they didn't want it. They didn't want it smuggled out, and why they've attacked it the way they have. Please, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel, like the pages, maybe buy me a midnight samosa. I'll leave it entirely up to you. But in the end, the place we're in, if you want your town back, you don't just need to vote them out. The people who move in need to be better. Good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.